Who are we talking to again?
Recording in progress.
Manly voice.
I'm leaving. I didn't know we were recording this.
No.
It's like, yeah, you all do kind of agree. It's like, yeah.
I can play the non-friend.
Planning.
Does this room look like
there's a plan?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Does it look like I planned anything behind me?
31. Y'all do that? Do y'all know that trick? A lot of people don't know the trick. You count your knuckles. It actually works. I mean, I was gonna say I have this cool little black book here that I write things down in, and like, here's the page for my MiG 29. I don't know if you see. I wrote the title.
So anal.
Actually, can I jump in real quick? Because I have to say something kind of funny. Too bad, I'm doing it anyways. Sorry, Scott. Sorry to cut you off. Oh, is it? Do I need to say something now? Is everyone staring at me?
Aluminium.
Oh, wow.
Stop.
You know what?
I'm glad that I got to be here for the Shropshire thing. I really am.
I mean,
I can't say it. I don't know. I've never been able to say that word. Say it like that. Sorry.
Aluminium.
Time to wrap it up, I guess.
I guess we do.
Yeah.
Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Plastic Posse Podcast. We're excited to have you, and we're excited for another day of discussing our favorite hobby, and that is plastic models. I'm joined today by Scott from here in Utah. We've got Grant out on the West Coast. We've got TJ back in Virginia. Justin, where are you from?
I'm actually out in West Texas. I'm in Lubbock, Texas.
Our friend Justin Lentz from West Texas, and of course, Jensen is in the UK. How are y'all doing today, guys?
Doing pretty
Sublime.
well. I'm doing well. Yeah, I just got home from breakfast with Pat Brown. We went to delicious Buford's biscuits in Leesburg. I got a nice big huge biscuit with spicy chicken and pimento on it. It was delicious.
Pat's good people.
Yeah,
Pat treated
my
wife and I to breakfast. It was very, very generous of him. He's one of the good ones, that's for sure.
And before we get started, everybody want to share what's been on their bench, what they've been up to, other than a delicious breakfast. TJ, well, how about you start?
Okay. I've been relatively busy. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, man, I can't remember the last time I was able to sit in on an episode and what I was working on. I think I was working on a Machine Krieger Falk is the last time. That is kind of marinating in the background, trying to figure out the direction I really want to go with it. I started working on the new Fireball SG, also Machine Krieger kit, one of the space suits. That's painted. It's purple. It's very purple. And I tried some different stuff on that. I ran into some decal issues that kind of didn't kill the build for me, but I have to fix silver decals, which I hate. And I pride myself in usually catching decals that are going to be a problem before, and I missed a few. And of course, one's right on the front. So I got to fix that. I'll just fix it with paint, but I'm just kind of letting it marinate. And then the other day, I got home from work. I had a crappy day at work, and I was like, I'm going to sell some kits, I think. So I started going through my kits, and I pulled a whole bunch out and came across my stack of Bandai, or no, sorry, not Bandai. I have those too. Fine mold Star Wars kits. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was kind of looking through one, and I opened the box of the Y-Wing, and lo and behold, was a almost completely assembled Y-Wing, which I had no memory of building. Probably 10 years ago when I bought the kit, it maybe, around there. I had to finish building the cockpit, the nose. That was it. That was almost all put together too. And I had to put the struts on the nacelles on. That was it. So I did that, and then I painted it. And that's what I've been working on these last couple of days. And probably when we're done with this, since my daughter had her volleyball game canceled, I will continue painting on that. I painted it in a weird scheme. If anyone ever played the X-Wing Miniatures tabletop game, there was a faction called Scum and Villainy. They were the bounty hunters and criminals, the Star Wars universe, and they had their own ships. And one of the ships was a Y-Wing. that you could fly, and it was the little they're little tiny 270 scale ships on pegs. That's how you played the game. They came pre-painted in the package, and one of the paint schemes was the one that I used on mine. It's like a off-white and deep burgundy black on it. It's cool, so it's pretty neat. And I know I was telling you guys before, and this is a potentially controversial opinion, but the Fine Molds Y-Wing is better than the Bandai Y-Wing for numerous reasons. And you can fight me on that, and you will not change my mind. It's an amazing kit. I wish I had another one, but I don't. So
understand that. That's why a lot of us are hoarding the Bandai kits, because as long as we can get them, we're gonna get a hold of them and keep them. Grant, what have you been up to?
Not too much, actually. I'm in a little bit of an issue with, like Craig Flynn is in Australia, is I found out they were remodeling my den at the last minute as they were pulling everything out of it when I came home from work. So I lost my den for a week and a half, so I don't really have a hobby room. I did work on a Bandai, speaking of Bandai, A-Wing with some friends. They were doing a group build, and I jumped in on with them. Straight up old school, worked on a TV tray in the living room, put it together, painted it with rattle cans. So now the den's supposed to be done today or tomorrow, hopefully today, and I can get some weathering done on it and get the airbrush going again. But other than that, I've been working hard, having fun, listening to all the different podcasts, and basically just taking a little bit of a break. You don't know how much you miss a hobby until you can't do it. Trust me, I found that out for sure. But that's about it.
Well, great. I hope they finish that real soon, because everybody knows what it's like to lose access to something that they love in their modeling. Jensen, what's happening out your way?
Nah, not an awful lot. Like I'm very slowly picking and poking away at this Border Models 190. It's a kit I want to love a lot more than I do. Don't get me wrong, it's really good. Its details are really nice. Its fit isn't awful. I'd say it's a solid like 7 out of 10 kit. I finished all the cockpit. I got all that painted, weathered, and that's all installed. Fuselage is together, wings are together, rudder, tailplanes, all that. It's the main meat of the aircraft is now together. All seams have been checked, sanded, rescribed, and re-riveted. It's nice. It's just, I like that Border go to the effort and give you, it's like, okay, we're going to give you the option to have all the gun bays open, the engine compartment. Like, if you can open it, you can see it. We'll give you that option. But obviously in doing that creates kind of issues where it's like, okay, this needs to go together perfect from the start for it all to finish, should you want to choose to have all these doors shut. Having test fit the engine and gun bays and all that stuff, it's kind of a weird in between now, because I've tried to fit all the doors closed because I was thinking I'm just not going to bother with any of that, and there are gaps. So it's like, okay, I'll show the engine off, and it's like, okay, but if I want to do that, there's a lot of details missing. Then I'm going to have to now add into that area like a lot of wiring. There's a lot of like stuff I'm gonna have to create with plastic card and like boxes and all that. It's just gonna take a lot of effort. I'm gonna 3D print some like I bought them a while back, like plumbing connectors and little conduit connectors, tons of different little fasteners and such. So I've got all them. That's really cool. I can do that, and I've got lots of lead wire and copper wire. So scratch building, doing all that stuff isn't a problem. It's just added a lot to the build if I'm going to show all that off. The engine in the kit is gorgeous, and I mean it's really, really nice. Again, all the rivets are gorgeous. It's just a really nice model, but I'm just not loving it as much as I wish I did. So I'm just really slowly picking and poking at it. It probably hasn't helped that nearly every night this week, when it's been kind of quiet in the evenings, I've just been putting all of Night Shift's videos on, like from his very, very first ones, and just going through all the series. And it's just like, I really want to build some armor now. I want to do a vignette. And I'm just like, should I just put this to one side and do a project that I actually kind of really want to do? But I know that's just going to add to that ever-growing pile of stuff I've started, and it's been shelved, and it's another thing that's not been finished. So I don't know. I'm in a bit of a gray zone at the minute of not knowing what to do.
Well, a 190 is almost a piece of armor, right?
That could be said. It is kind of a flying tank, and it's in that nice, perfect 35th scale. So I could do a vignette with that as well. Who knows? We'll get there in the end. As soon as the aircraft's like in primer and I can start painting it, that's when I'm in my zone. And aircraft, I absolutely love painting aircraft. So I know when I get to that stage, I'll be happy.
You think it's just scope of the project more than anything, more than you, because it doesn't sound like you dislike the kid. It just sounds like it's a lot.
Yeah, it's Zukimura-esque. And that's kind of, we've noticed that with Border Models. They did it with the 109, and they probably did it with Stuka, and the new Kate that's coming out with all the oil cannon skin. It's going to be gorgeous, and I'm going to buy that day one. But I also worry, it's like, okay, you've added a lot. How does that complicate the building anyway? Like, is it going to be a compromise of, okay, we give you a gorgeous looking kit, but you're going to suffer in the building process?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Really like the work you've done, though. That cockpit is gorgeous.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm going on quite a bit. Cockpit, I'm really proud of because I really wanted to push the contrast on that. So it's like I went through the different levels of MRP. Like I used MRP. I love that for aircraft. MRP, the cockpit, I really pushed like how much lighter I went with it and fading it. I used a black wash to really like that contrast is strong. I chipped through to AK metallic paint, so it's like it's just really obvious. On aircraft, I really like contrast, so that's what I'm going to try and go with. I don't want to say Spanish school. It sounds really, for some reason to me, that sounds patronizing. I don't know why, but I want to go for that high contrast level of model weathering and paint effects on this model.
Awesome. All right, Scott, your turn. What's on your bench?
So what's actually on my bench still is a couple things I've been working on. My Viper, which I've got a couple more parts primed and waiting to be sanded. I got to get a new can, that Krylon body filler primer that I've been using to kind of make sure that the finish of the parts is really smooth. The rattle can, the nozzle kind of died on me, so I got to get another can of that. But I've also been working on a buddy build with Josh Buck, one of those DOS Work 155 howitzers, the 1918. I already kind of showed the guys this, but this week my AMT Studio Series TIE Fighter came in 132nd scale. That's really great, really exciting. And I also got in a book that we'll talk about later in the show. I've been doing 3D printing. Been working on some parts for JB for a 3D printed tank I'm going to send him. And I just did my last plate of parts for a 132nd scale Viper Mark I for our good buddy Aaron Cook. Which I'm going to be sending him. And then I got to get this week, I got to get a bunch of boxes out to Grant and to TJ. And I got a big, long list of stuff I got to send out to people. So yeah, that's what I've been working on. A little bit of this and a little bit of that.
You know, I think that's the first time I've ever heard really great, really exciting, and AMT in the same sentence.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm still trying to figure out why it's like a cachet thing to put an AMT logo on a box, you know, because for decades, if I saw AMT on a box, I was like, move along, nothing to see here.
All right, Justin, tell us a little bit about what you're working on. And for those of our listeners that have not heard you with the Geeks, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure, man. Well, first of all, man, I appreciate you guys having me on. You know, I drive around and listen to y'all a lot when I'm at work and stuff. I work in the gas industry or natural gas distribution industry, so I'm out in the country a lot, and so I've got a lot of miles to drive, and so it's always nice to have the multiple voices. That's been my only thing. Every once in a while, I'll tell somebody, I'm like, man, I love listening to Plastic Posse, but it's like there are so many voices sometimes that I'm like, hold on, I got to put a face to this. Hold on a second, who is that? Who's talking? But anyway, I live out in West Texas. I've been building models since I guess the early 90s or something like that. When I was a kid, I mean, I had a buddy of mine who lived about 3 miles away, and we would walk back and forth to each other's houses and build old monogram kits together. You know, painting everything with rattle cans or even like the old Model Master. Whenever cutting grass. That's how we do it. We cut grass and we go buy models, and so did that a lot. You know, then met. You know, so I know you mentioned the Geeks. Met Scott Samo probably early 90s, and he was like, hey man, let me show you how to really build a model. You know, I mean, I didn't know what a seam was. I didn't know what an airbrush was. I just stuck them together and painted them. I didn't know anything about it. So he kind of set me on the path, and I've been going ever since. So always been kind of an aircraft guy. I've tried armor so many times, and man, they always stall out. I think I finished like 2 or 3 72nd scale kits of armor, but I think I probably got 10. One of these days, I'm just going to ship. I'm going to get one of y'all's addresses and just ship you a whole bunch of armor kits that I'm just never going to get to. Because it's like Jensen was talking about, you got this growing pile of stuff, and it's almost, it's not depressing, but it'll stall you out. You know what I mean? You kind of look up there like, man, I really should do that. I'm just going to go watch TV instead. That's what that's what ends up happening to me a lot. But anyway, so I've been kind of a 48 scale aircraft guy for a long time. Was really into props whenever I first kind of started back, like after I got married. You know, I probably took 5 or 6 years off before I got married. I was playing music a lot, and so was moving around a bunch. I played drums since the late 90s and played in bands and toured and did some stuff, and so ended up just, you know, kind of walked away. I mean, I think a lot of people walk away from the hobby, you know, in their late teens, early 20s, ready for girls or work or military service or whatever. But mine was just kind of more music and whenever I kind of got back into it after I got married in 2005, I had like 3 colors. I had 3 Gunzy colors, which was like RLM. I think I had the 74, 75, 76. So that's all I built for a little while was Luftwaffe planes, because that's all the freaking paint I had, And so I cranked out a whole bunch of the older Tamiya 109E and the E4 and the E3. I think I built like 7 or 8 of those before I finally was like, I should try something else. I guess, I don't know, probably about 2010, 2011, somewhere in there, I finally was like, you know what? I want to get good at this. And so, I don't know, I really kind of started really kind of drilling down and kind of focusing on what I was doing. And, of course, then Facebook came along and groups and just, Hyperscale was there before that, I think, obviously before, maybe in like 2006 or 2007 when I could afford an internet back then anyway. Again, as a musician, good luck, unless you're really making it. We were poor. Once I came across Hyperscale and just kind of learning how to actually use my airbrush and how to thin my paint and stuff like that, late, I don't know, probably, 2011 or something, I just figured out, hey, it's time to, if I'm going to do this, let's be good at it. So I started building some different things, started building some jets. And that's kind of the things that I've been doing lately is I kind of got hooked on MiG-21s. That's another thing. Like, I don't just build one of something. I'll build like 5 or 6 of them. So MiG-21s, I've probably got 3 or 4, 5 in the case, and I'm kind of working on another one right now. This is not a very good shot of it, but I'm working on one of the Chinese license built. I guess it was an early MiG-21 that they've now modernized, and it's I don't know how you say it, Chengdu. I can't speak Chinese. The J7 PG, which the Pakistanis fly, and so that's kind of that's kind of what I'm doing right now, man. Working on that, going down lots and lots of rabbit holes because trumpeter kits are always close, but not quite, and so I've been having to combine kits to get this one going. I've got 5 different pictures pulled up on my laptop, like looking and say, hey, that antenna's not on here, so I need to, how to scratch build some antennas and put some stuff here. I'm trying not to go down the rabbit hole because then it does eventually end up on the shelf instead of finished. But I'm pressing on, man. I'm pressing on.
I'm curious as to your tendency to batch build something. Is that something like, do you go and grab a bunch of kits with the intention of doing that, or do you do one and then that leads to another, which leads to another? Yeah,
that's kind of how it seems like it happens. I'll build one, and that's what it was. I built the Edward, the MiG-21 MF whenever it came out, and that was actually kind of fun. I'll do another one, and so I got another one, and then I did the BIS, so the BIS. And then after that, I ended up building the Trumpeter F-13. It's just, I don't know, you kind of get interested in, the airframe, and I don't know, there's just so many cool schemes. That's the other thing. And that was the same thing with the 109 early on. There's just so many schemes and so many things you can do with them. And I don't know, you kind of become comfortable with the kit too, and it's like you start to figure out. I know I've sent TJ a few texts, like some little hacks on the Edward kit that can make things make your life a lot easier. Like there's some really funky seam lines that you have to deal with, and there's some ways around it. I'm sure he would have figured it out eventually anyway, but I'm always like, ooh, let me help. But I think that's really it. You just kind of become comfortable, and then again, it's just the schemes, man.
That MiG-21 you're talking about, you're building now, the Chinese version of an earlier version. That's quite interesting. Where do you get your reference for that? Is it online? Do you use books, or you bumming off the mojo? Or
I wish. The problem is that I've reached out, and it may just be a language barrier thing, or it might. I don't know. But I've reached out to some guys in Pakistan, like, hey, I need some pictures of these things. And there's some on there, what is it? Jet photos, I guess.com, and then like airliners, stuff like that. You can find some really cool pictures, but it's never what you need. You know what I mean? It's like, I need this picture, but can we please rotate it like 90 degrees so I can see what's going on under there? So it's just a lot. It's mainly internet, because this thing, there's just not a lot out there on it. And it's such a weird plane too, because you've got Chinese license built Russian aircraft, right? Mm-hmm. And then it's got like half Chinese avionics and half, it's got some NATO stuff on it too. And then it's got AIM 9 sidewinders. and it also can shoot like French missiles, and it's got a British ejection seat. It's just all this weird mishmash of stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The aircraft's a hodgepodge of everything. I mean, I've seen them with HARM missiles. The HARMs have been on them. I've seen them with the French anti-ship missiles. I've seen it's crazy. So that's an interesting subject.
Yeah. Cluster bombs. Yeah, I found a picture of one of these with some American cluster bombs on it. I was like, what the heck is going on? I also think it's cool. They've got they actually have, I think that these are I think that they're phasing these out, and I think it's this year. I've had to kind of, there are some groups that there are a lot of, like, I think they're pilots. They're Pakistani pilots, and it sounds like they are kind of phasing these out this year. But it's cool. There's a lot of females that fly these.
Oh wow.
There's a lot of women pilots that fly these. So it's kind of cool seeing pictures. And you're like, wait, oh, that's cool. It's just a neat airplane, and you just don't see them done very often. So
right.
I was like, well, here we go. And I think I started this thing. Here's my confession. I started for like 3 years ago, and then I put it up and then I take it down. I put it up and take it down. So I don't know if I'm quite as bad as TJ with the 10-year break in between starting and finishing, but it'll probably get there eventually. Let me say this. If there's anybody out there, if there are any experts who are listening to this, can you please reach out to me and send me some pictures? Or if there's a book, because I've looked for books, sometimes that's the only way you can find it. You can find a really cool book that, has all the pictures you need, but there's not one for this guy. It's just not.
Well,
I'm curious.
Out, so we'll see what we can get for you.
All right. Thanks, Doug.
I'm curious if you have a kit, I call it old reliable, a kit you can always fall back on if you need to. That's like, you just know, it's like, I know I'm not going to have problems with this. I love the kit. If you have one.
Yeah, it probably honestly is that old Tamiya 109, the early, I know that the Edward 109E is probably so much better in every way, but gosh, I know where all the issues are with the Tamiya kit. I think I still have three in the closet that I'll just, every once in a while, I'll just break one out, slap it together. And the problem that I'm starting to run into is that all my decals for those are old. And so they're starting to get kind of shattery. It's like, oh no, I need to update these. And one of these days, I guess I'll probably retire that. And then I guess at that point, if I ever retired that, it probably would be the Edward MiG-21. It's just once you've built it a couple times, it's just everything goes together. You know where all the pitfalls are. And there are a few that are just like, ooh, what the heck? But, and I know that TJ, you were building one of those, or you still are, I guess. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about it.
It's sitting in the box over here. I keep the ones I keep in rotation. I guess that's not really the right way to say it, but the ones I would be happy to pick back up again, I keep under my second desk in their box. I don't put them back on the shelf. I've got the fuselage closed up. I've worked on the seams, which there aren't really many, which is nice, especially on the spine, because you get that whole spine piece that just slots right on. There's one, as you know, there's one on the bottom, and it's over a round panel, but I bought I sanded it and it looked like crap. So I'm like, I don't really want to rescribe this. So I bought the photo etch panel. So I'm like, I'll just put a photo etch panel on it and you'll be none the wiser. But the one pitfall, that leading edge seam where the on the wings where it meets, the dumbest seam ever, because it's like, why would you do that? It's in the most awkward spot. That's the only thing I've really found so far. And I know I talked to you about it, Justin, with the R version, it has a different belly piece, which I think John Bryan also ran into. You get a pretty decent gap between the back of, because if no one's ever built one, it's kind of hard to describe. But if you built one, the piece I'm talking about. It has the holes for the wheel wells, and it mates to the top after you put the top section on. There's like the belly of the fuselage where it meets the back of the fuselage where the engine is. There's a pretty significant gap. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to fill that. I'll find a way, because like you, Justin, I love the MiG-21. It's such a cool airframe. It ticks all of my boxes. It's long, it's skinny, it's got stubby wings, and it's Cold War. That's like all my favorite things. I don't know what it is about those Cold War designs that just sing to me, but it's the best one. That and the F-104 Starfighter, also very similar. But yeah,
the R is the only one that I have not. It's not in the plastic, but I don't think I've broke the bags on that one. I think every other one has got the cockpit painted. it's going. I find that that's a common spot where I'm like, cockpit's painted, cool. I'm gonna put it back in the box and let it languish for 3 years. I have quite a few of those, and I'd like to. The R is one, and I have heard that the R and maybe even like some of the early, like maybe the PF or the PFM, there are some issues on a couple of those that are a little harder than like the MF or the BIS. So I don't know.
Which
now, this is getting my MiG-21 mojo going.
I have both of those. 'Cause I think Sprue Brothers, I can't remember if it was the BIS or the MF. They had it on Lightning Deal. I'm like, there's no reason not to buy it. It was like $25, and then you can get a handful of good aftermarket stuff to go with it, and you're still less than the price of like one brand new. Right. So I'm like, F it. Like there's no reason not to do this. So I have that. And then I can't remember. I picked up I think that was the BIS. And then I picked up the MF at another. Maybe I just was like, oh, I'm going to buy some stuff. And I bought it. And then I also have the 72nd scale version that I bought at Nats because they were 25% off. So I bought that. And I think
did I give you hell about that? I was like, come on, man, let's go 48 scale here, buddy.
I mean, I got 3 of them though. And I've heard that the 72nd scale one is really good. And I know just looking at the sprues, they do one thing better than the 48th. The nozzle on the back that goes over the engine is one piece instead of 2 pieces like on the 48th scale, which makes no sense because you get that weird seam on the inside, which is on at least on one of mine. I have a resin tail cone on it.
I've got quite a few of those. I've got the NATO version. It's in Czech. It's in there. There was one at Nats. I don't know if y'all remember. It had all the tiger stripes on it. It's kind of got like the tiger stripes on the tail.
Yeah.
But it's like low vis tiger. It's all gray. I can't remember who built that, but I thought it was really cool. And then I've got like the Icaro resin. It's the conversion kit to make the Lancer. And that's another one that I'd really like to do. The Lancer has that crazy like neon blue underside. It's got all the really cool. It's totally modernized too. I think the Romania fly those. I can't remember, but they're cool. That's another one that's on the short list. And gosh, there's just so many. And that's the thing. Again, it's one kind of airplane that I can just go down a rabbit hole and build like 15 different ones. And for the most part, it's the same thing other than, you're finishing some of the details. And I kind of really get into just like the really, I don't know, just the little differences here and there. You got guys who are Spitfire nuts. I think El Presidente on the Geeks, I think he's a big Spitfire nut. So he knows like the little, you can ask him anything about a Spitfire and he can tell you where this latch was or that latch. And so I'm not quite that good with MiG-21s, but there have been times that I have been. I'm like, oh yeah, man. Of course, I forget half of it because I've got 3 kids and a freaking job, and I just kind of forget about a lot of that stuff. But I enjoy it. Man, I enjoy it.
There's another guy that likes to batch build. He's been talking on the recent Geeks about doing, I think, 8 Revell or Monogram Mustangs at the same time for a game, but still, that batch build concept is interesting. I've done a couple at a time, but I don't think I've ever done 6 or 8 or anything like that. Well, what else do you build besides jets?
Recently, I guess it's been kind of a jet thing. I'm looking at my little case over here, and I took some of these things to Nats. I had a couple of like Nazi bombers, that I built back in the day. I had an HE-111 at Nats that got a first place. It was kind of in a desert scheme. I'm sure some of y'all saw that thing. It was kind of on the table by itself for most of the contest. I was like, dang man, I'm gonna get an award just because I'm one of the only 3 in this category. Of course, then by the end of the thing, they're filled up. But and then I've got. I've got so much stuff in here, man. It's just, there's a Japanese float plane that I took to Nats. I brought a couple of Russian, prop fighters. That's kind of a thing I'd like to do. I've got a MiG-3 and a Yak-3, and I'd like to do the LAG. Is it the LAG-3? Is that the other 3 that I'd like to have all 3 of those at some point, and then maybe I've never entered like a collection or something like that, but it'd be cool to have like the Russian -3s or something and have all 3 of those sitting next to each other. I thought that would be kind of cool. So that's kind of something, except the LAG-3 that I have is the old ICM kit. And that thing is, that'll be a chore. It's the old ICM, not the new. I mean, if they came out with the new one, I'd be all over it. Old ICM is not easy. Yeah. And I did, I just thought about this. I did, and I even put it on the posse. I actually just finished up my first kind of like non-airplane build or non-armor build, and I finished a Gundam. I guess you could go back. I don't know when I posted that, but it was that old old GOG kit, which is the really weird, like underwater amphibious suit or whatever. I kind of just went with what it looked like on the box and really tried to restrain myself whenever it came to any kind of weathering, because man, those things are huge. I mean, it's like I even made like a little tiny plastic man so that I could get, you can't see it of course, but I made myself a little plastic man just so I could be like, okay, now how small would these chips be and how small would these scratches be, just to kind of try to keep myself in some kind of line, And so that was really fun. I actually had a really good time, and went right after I finished that, went right back to the hobby shop and grabbed another Gundam kit. And so that's something I've been working on. Well, my boys really are really into Gundams too. I've got a 10-year-old who's been able to, I mean, it's crazy. I think that following an instruction sheet, I tell people this all the time, but I think in following a sheet of instructions is a life skill. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't know how to do it. So, I give my kids an instruction sheet and a model. I'm like, build it. And they can, and I think it's impressive. I'm like, man, my little 6-year-old can do it too. So it's kind of been fun to kind of share that with them too,
Yeah, that's really cool. As mostly an aircraft modeler, what was it like kind of going outside your comfort zone and building a Gundam kit?
It was a little different. I think that I was looking for seams, as an aircraft guy, I was looking for seams that I think you're actually supposed to leave. And I filled a whole bunch of them. It's like, oh, look at this seam that's supposed to be gone. And then I'm looking at the box. I'm like, actually, you know what? I think that was supposed to be there. But, so I've got like a really nice, smooth Gundam with not very many seams. And again, the scale thing, like I talked about, was a big difference. Just having to restrain, and hold back a little bit and not make it too crazy looking. I mean, because if I'm airbrushing on some streaks, I mean, that's a massive fluid leak, that's like, hundreds of gallons a second or something at that point. So, but other than that, I mean, I felt, I used my normal skills, I mean, I did some dry brushing. That's another thing I've gotten into lately too, is just like Warhammer stuff, trying to learn how to hand paint. We moved about 2 years ago, and so I didn't have access to my bench. And so I got some Games Workshop stuff and started kind of trying to figure out, okay, how do I paint this? And I think I've sent TJ quite a few messages like, bro, how do I make this look better? So I always fall back to my dry brushing stuff, and I even dry brushed on this Gundam. And I mean, there's just some things you can't get away from. People are like, ew, you dry brush. I love it. I can't help it. My favorite.
I've long maintained that dry brushing is a much maligned technique, and it shouldn't be. But like anything, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And my personal opinion, the wrong way is dry brushing an armor model with titanium white. I mean, this isn't 1975, right? Like we've moved past that. I mean, and if you still do that, that's fine. Like, okay, you do you. But me, that's not it. I guess saying the wrong way is not the right way to say it. But I dry brush as well. Dry brushing oils is awesome. I do that on my armor models. If you do it in a proper way, then it's not. You can make it work. And the same thing goes with miniatures, and you'll see, and I see it in videos now where model or painters are like, hey, dry brushing gets a bad rap, but there's a lot of times where you really need to do it, and it really can make the difference. And same thing when you're painting miniatures, there's a good way to do it and a not so good way to do it. And if you do it the good way, man, it looks cool. I was like that Artis Opus guy. I can't remember his name. They sell brushes, and he shows you how to dry brush everything. He'll dry brush an entire like Warhammer vehicle, and it looks awesome if you follow what he does. And obviously, if you just paint it one color and dry brush it one color, yeah, it's gonna look like it was dry brush. But yeah, I'd see people that turn their nose up at that is, I can't get behind that. And like techniques are techniques, man. They're tools. That's what they're there for.
Mm-hmm. You can figure out a good way to stack those techniques too. You've got your dry brushing, and some of y'all may be familiar with the whole slap chop thing, where people are, you're basically spraying one color and then kind of dry brushing and using the contrast paints over the top. And at first I was like, man, that's crazy. There's no way that looks good. And then you try it and it's like, yeah. And then you can kind of stack some more techniques over the top of that. And man, you can really get some stuff done quickly. I had a couple guys approach me like, hey, will you paint this army for me? Which I'm kind of, I talk to Whitey a lot with the geeks. Both of us end up with commission builds, and it's just like, it turns into a slog, man. And I'm sure that y'all have been there before too. And I just learned, I need to learn to say no. But whenever it comes to that army stuff, man, being able to just dry brush and and then do some washes and stack some techniques over that, you can really get some stuff done really quickly. And it looks pretty dang good. It really does.
So, Justin, if people aren't familiar with your work, where can they find you on social media?
Well, you can find me on Facebook. If you see me, my wife and I have been talking about this too. She's like, well, people will see pictures of our family. I'm like, well, most of the people that that I'm friends with on Facebook, I know who they are. I don't think that they're criminals. They may be. For the most part, I think everybody's pretty, on the up and up here. But, you can find me on Facebook. Just search Justin Lentz and you'll find me on there. I don't even know what the heck my picture is anymore, but just send me a friend request. I'd love to be buddies. I will check you out. I'll probably do a full background check. I'll need, send me your social security number, address, stuff like that, and we'll figure that out. But then you can also find me on Instagram. I think it's on Instagram. I'm Justin D. Lentz. And I think that's kind of where I'm going to start kind of putting my model stuff more on Instagram, and then make it to where, you don't have to see pictures of like my front porch. I'm asking people for advice on what I should do, as far as decorating my front porch, and it goes to Instagram. And the cool thing is, I've got modeling guys who are like, oh, actually, I think it'd be a really good idea, if you did this and it did that. I was like, Bruce Worrell, I never actually thought that I would be getting advice from you on how I should decorate my front porch, but this is great. This is great.
I know. I agree with John Everett. A guitar would be nice.
Right. Just a guitar mural.
You also forgot your blog over at www.iwonacraptonawards@nats.com. We were talking before we started recording. TJ and I were giving Justin a little heat because we were walking around in the show floor kind of with Justin, and he was showing us his stuff, and it's legit. I mean, it's really, really good. You're very talented, and I think you were kind of saying, I come to these things, but I never win. It'd be nice to maybe take home one. And we get into the awards ceremony. I'm kind of in the back of the room because I was trying to help broadcast the awards ceremony, and you get an award. So I send you a text. Nice job, man. Good job. And you sent me a thing back, thanks. And then they read your name. And they read your name again. About 6 or 7 times in, I sent Justin a text, said, dude, settle down, seriously, man.
Oh, dude, it was awesome, man. I really wanted, I don't care about awards, but I just really wanted one of those cool little belt buckles, man. That was a killer award. It's just cool to put in your little case and be like, oh man, that's neat. I just thought they were so cool. And so that was really, I just wanted one, man. I couldn't help it. I don't care if it was third, or whatever. I really wanted one of those little things. So to pick up, but the thing is, I brought everything basically that I've ever built, because I've been one other Nats, and that was last year, and flew up there kind of last minute and was able to take like a little box with 2 airplanes in it, and took those up there. And those are the only 2 basically that I was proud of that I didn't take to this Nats. It was only, about a 6-hour drive from here to Nats this year. And so, dude, I packed everything. I think I ended up bringing like 18 models or something like that. And so many of them ended up in the same category, but half of it was like, I just want to have my models here so I can show people. Like, I want to talk about, my models, and I want to see everybody else's stuff. So that's going to be the hard part, is that from now on, like, I'm going to actually have to build stuff to take the Nats and stuff, because I don't have anything left. Everything that I took down there, I can't take anymore. So I'm gonna have to actually build stuff. I'm gonna finish stuff, y'all. This is kind of putting some pressure on me here.
So what's next? What are you working on right now?
Well, after this funky fake MiG, that's what Whitey calls it. He calls it a fake MiG. Anytime I see a Griffin engine Spitfire, I always call them fake Spitfires, which the geeks love. So he's been calling this a fake MiG, and I guess it kind of is. But after this fake MiG, just having this conversation with y'all, I'm like, oh man, I need to get back on my MiG-21s. So I think I'm probably gonna break out one of those. I've got the PF. I think and it's in the here's the funny thing. I've never built a Russian MiG. Not a single. I'm trying to look here. No. They're all something else. So I think the next one that I had planned was to build the Russian PF that has the big, I don't know if it has the big red stripe around the rear of the fuselage. I think it was maybe like whenever they were, was it like the they were attacking Czechoslovakia or something, or there was something going on. That's the other thing, is that my history kind of falls off, but that's probably the next one, natural metal. And then I'm probably just going to fall down the MiG-21 rabbit hole for a little while. That's kind of where I'm going. Other than the Gundam thing is still going to happen. That's going to happen. So those of y'all who build Gundams, be expecting private messages quite often, because I have no idea what's going on.
You want to hit up Cobra Pla, our buddy up in Seattle. He eats, drinks, and sleeps that stuff. So yeah, he's a good reference. Yeah,
he's awesome, man. And you know what? I'd be remiss if I didn't thank him, because he's one of the guys that I have been kind of going back and forth with, like, hey, recommend a good kit. That's the other thing, is like, I have no idea what's good and bad, and even why it's good and bad whenever it comes to some of these things. So it's like, hey, dude, help me pick out a decent next kit. And so he has, man, his stuff is so good. Holy crap, his stuff is so good.
Yeah, he's good at photography too. But yeah, he's a great resource. I was looking for a messer, and he was like, yeah, you don't want to do the 2010 one. That one's junk. But this 2016 one, yeah, that's your kit. You're like, oh, okay. All right. I would not have known this.
Yep. So, yeah. I will buy that one.
Okay, big question time. Your magnum opus build. You can build anything. The kit doesn't even have to exist. But if you could build one thing, it's like, I would be happy till the day I die that I built that kit. What would it be?
One kit. So there's one kit that I would, and this would be way out of left field now that we've been talking about MiGs and all this other stuff. But the one kit that I wish that they would make, and I wish Hasegawa already has a 72nd scale. Is it the Jake, the float plane? It's got the dual floats, and Nichimo made it way back in the day, and Hasegawa has a 72nd scale kit. The 48 scale Jake would probably be the thing. Just thinking about it right now, like, I want that kit to come out. That might just be my wish. Magnum opus would probably be, see, and I don't go off of 48 scale. That's the other thing. People are like, man, you should build a 32nd scale MiG-21. I'm like, can't do it. I just can't do it. I don't have the space, and I don't know. There's something about it. But I would think probably the 48 scale Jake float plane. Come on, Hasegawa. Let's do it.
I'm surprised it doesn't already exist.
It's been like 8 years since they released the 72nd scale one, I think. And I don't think they've come out with anything 48 scale aircraft like new anyway in forever. So
yeah, it seems like they're mostly doing sci-fi for their new releases rather than very many aircraft. At least that's what it seems like.
Yeah, I would love. I do have their Dave. I kind of have a weak spot for Japanese float planes too. Not that I necessarily build them. I built two. I built a roof and the Rex, but then I also have the Dave and the Pete in the stash, and those are ones that I've taken out and cut off screws and started fitting them and messing with. So those two are there, but that Jake, man, they gotta do the thing Jake
with a catapult. That
would be freaking cool too. Did they do catapults, or did they just do a little crane, set it in the water, and let it go?
I think isn't that what Basquet's been working on? His is 72, but I think he's working on a Jake with a catapult. Yeah.
Ooh, well, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I think they were launched with the catapult.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because if you go in magnum opus, go big, right? Yeah, maybe a turret or something on the ship or something too. But yeah, that float planes are really, really cool. I think Grant picked up one of Edward's 2 packs of the roofs at Nats from Edward.
We sure did. I think Jensen also got one too.
Yeah, as soon as you said how much it was, I was like, right, I'm going now. Watch the tape. I'll be back in a second.
Yep. I really think, I don't know. It's been crazy that you've seen a lot of more Japanese float planes. There's been a big in call for them, and I think that's by modelers, like yourself, who brought very nice looking float planes to nationals, and people are seeing it and they're wanting it, and it's definitely a growing section of the build aircraft.
Yeah, I think it's just for me too. It's like, okay, here we go. Now on to the fiddly bits, and guess what? There aren't any fiddly bits. It's like you don't have to attach any gear. You don't have to attach any of that annoying stuff that always kills me at the end of a build.
Yep.
That's what's so cool about float planes too. It does take a little bit of imagination to figure out a way to kind of display them. And I've never done the whole water thing. Right. I did mine kind of on like my little Rex that I brought to Nats. I did that like on a little boat ramp.
Right.
And I had a figure that I had painted a while back. So I was like, I'll stick him on there too. And so we kind of got to get a little creative.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about the Edwards kit is that it comes with the trailers. So, you've got the trailers right there. And that kit's a dual kit, so you get 2 sets of trailers. So it's nice. It's it is, I think it's the uniqueness of them. And there's been actually in the last couple of years a really couple of good books that came out about Japanese floor planes. And I can't remember the name of the company that was there's one that they were at Nationals actually, and they were selling their books, and it's really actually pretty good, interesting book. So, more power to them. Anything more unique like that is great to see in the hobby.
Definitely.
The Triple P is sponsored by Tankcraft, makers of the highly realistic aftermarket 3D printed tank tracks in 1/35th scale. Tankcraft Pro Tracks are as real as it gets. These are not just copies of previously produced model kit parts. These designs are based on real 1-to-1 scale tank track links that Tankcraft has measured and photographed. These designs are then downsized to 1/35th scale, printed, and then test fitted to major brand 1/35th armor kits. Having used these tracks, we can honestly say that these are the highest quality tracks that we've ever used. Super detailed, easy to assemble, with very fine, almost invisible layer lines. Cleanup is minimal and usually not even needed. So go on over to tankcraft.com right now, that's TANKRAFT.com, and get yourself a set of Pro Tracks. While you're there, check out the other cool scale modelling tools that they sell. Your bench will thank you. And just a reminder, Posse fans can get 15% off their first order using the Posse15 code at checkout. That's POSSE 15 at checkout for your discount.
All right, I think it's time to move on to, I guess I can tell you guys what I was doing. Do you want to hear what I've been working on? That's not a whole lot.
Yep.
Doug, what have you been working on?
Oh, me? I've been part of the A-Wing build that Grant's a part of. I've got it ready for paint and ready to go. Actually, it's painted. It's got the base coat on. I'm looking to put markings on it now. For the most part, that's where I'm at. I was out of town in California for a week. So that kind of threw a lot of my plans off for these kinds of things. We had a couple of shows, though, recently that our guys attended. I want to start off by talking about a show that I saw, an unexpected show, an awesome show. I was at Disneyland and walking out of the Fantasyland part, if you know where that is, if you've been there, and everybody around us gasped all of a sudden because right out in front of us, in the twilight sky, the sun had been down for half an hour, was a rocket launch from Vandenberg Space Force Base. And I've never seen anything like it. I follow rocket launches as much as I can because I think it's awesome. And I saw it in person, watched the first and second stage separate, and you could see the second stage going on for 3 minutes. You could still see it as it was picking up more speed. It was a Firefly launch. So I just wanted to brag on that because that was like one of the coolest things I have ever seen. So model shows though, Scott, you and JB went up to Boise. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. JB flew over from Denver. I picked him up at the airport on Friday afternoon a couple weeks ago, and being where he's in Denver, I think his plane ticket over to me was like $29. I mean, it's way cheaper than driving, right? So I just picked him up and we grabbed a burger and headed for Idaho. And Boise's not that far. It's 4.5 hours, something like that. And anyway, we crashed and got up and went to a show, and it's kind of a smaller show, but it was great. The Boise Club puts on a nice little model show. They had it in a local church. The president of the chapter there works at this church, and really, really nice, really open, well lit area. I think there were about 360 models that ended up showing up, and we had guys from Oregon and Washington and Utah, as well as the Idaho guys, and that was really, really good. Met a lot of friends and made some new friends, and had a really, really good time. They had a really good raffle. I bought $12 worth of raffle tickets and won 7 things, so I just was giving them away. One of our local guys, his name is Aaron, and man, his son came, and we were giving him, all of us were giving him our raffle tickets because we were winning, and he was going and getting them, and he ended up bringing a big old huge stack of kits home in the truck, and JB even gave him a lesson. He went over there. John and I were over there at the raffle, and he came over to collect one of his wins, and he grabs this little 70-second scale something, and JB gently kind of puts his hand on him and says, no, put that back. Let me show you how this is done. He's like, now step back here. He's like, I want you to look and see what's the biggest kit there is. And so he looks around and he finds this Airfix 124 scale BF 109E. And then John goes, that's the way you do raffles. That's the way you do them. So that was a lot of fun. It was a really good time. Really appreciate the hospitality they showed us. And, obviously we posted a lot of videos and pictures, but it was great. Really had a good time.
Grant, you made it out to the 101 Wonders show. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a WonderCon in Oxnard, California. It's a group from the Thousand Oaks, Oxnard area, IPMS group, a brand new group, only about 1 or 2 years old. This was their very first show. They had it at a small little car museum there in Oxnard, California, which was quite interesting. A lot of neat cars and everything around there. Like I said, it was their very first show. They ended up with over 310 models, 265 competitors, which was great. They underestimated themselves quite a bit, and they were bringing in tables and crazy stuff like that. So that's really good. And there was people from Southern Cal and North Cal. There was some the Vegas guys showed up. Joe and that group of guys showed up. There were some people from all over Nevada. Some even came up from Mexico. So it was a really good show. They had a great time. It's their, like I said, very first show, 300 plus models. You can't beat that. They had a really good idea, which I really like. They limited people to 2 models per category. So you couldn't bring in a lot of models for one category. So it was really it made it a little bit easier to get stuff moved around. They had a really good variety of models, I would say. There was everything from which we have a lot of here is car builders, which are fantastic. The car builders in the Southern California area are some of the best I've seen. The paint, the work they do is phenomenal. Aircraft modelers, there are some really, really good local aircraft modelers out here. And then there was armor, sci-fi, all the rest. It turned out really nice, but it was a great time. And the group was really happy, and they did a great job. I can't say enough about the group. They hooked me up with a table, and I was able to get some kits sold off that I needed to get some extra money for some shows coming up, and it was great. But I cannot thank those guys enough. The group did a fantastic job for their first show, for anything. They were great.
Grant, I want to personally thank you for the proper pronunciation of Nevada. Thank you, because no one says it right. Everyone says Nevada, and it's not Nevada; it's Nevada. So
yes,
thank you.
You're welcome.
As a former Nevadan, I appreciate it.
I have been corrected on that so many times that it's burned in my head now.
TJ had an idea for something we could discuss today. TJ, do you want to lead us into our discussion topic?
Yeah, I can do that. Actually, I have to tip the hat to JB, who is not with us today. It was actually his idea that he had said he wanted to discuss. So sorry, man, that you missed this one, but he wanted to discuss planning or lack thereof, and how it impacts your model building and what you plan, if you plan anything at all. And I'll go ahead and start. And I'm sure this won't be a surprise to literally anyone that knows me. I don't plan anything, like at all. As we were saying before, we were kind of getting going. Look at the desk behind me. Does it look like anything back there has been planned? Because it's not. Yeah, I don't plan it. Like, just full stop. I just don't. I wish that I could in a lot of ways. I feel like I see people that do. Like, I've seen it like on social media where guys will like literally write down everything they're going to do on a build. And, I wish I could do that. And sometimes I just can't. If I had to do that, I feel like it would just kill any momentum that I might even have. Like most things in life, I make it up as I go along. I fake it until I make it. I do that professionally. I do that in modeling. I just throw caution to the wind and just go. Yeah, I don't know if that's the best way to do it. Sometimes it bites me in the butt a little bit, because I'll get this idea. I'll have an idea and I'm like, yep, just gonna go. And I go and I'm like, ooh, I probably should have thought about this a little bit harder than I did. And that's probably why I have a lot of stalled builds. I know you guys have probably seen, I have a spreadsheet of my stash, and I have a column on whether or not it's started or not. And if I choose it's started on the drop down menu, it turns that cell yellow. I have a lot of yellow cells on my list of kits. And it's also, sidebar, that's annoying because when I go, like the other day when I was like, I'm going to sell some of these, I'm like, ooh, yeah, I started this one. I probably can't sell it. I mean, maybe, but I know I wouldn't want to buy a kit that was started. So I'm like, man, I got some good stuff here that I probably won't ever build, but it's like half built. Who's going to buy this? Maybe someone that knew me, but I wouldn't sell it to a stranger because they don't know if my builds are good. And frankly, half of them aren't that good. So I'm not the best builder in the world. So yeah, I don't plan anything. To me, it's kind of a waste of time. Of my time. Again, if someone else wants to do that, that's fine. That's your time. You can use it however you would like. But to me, especially now, where my time is a little bit more limited because of work, and I work far away from my house, so I get home later than I would like. I have stuff outside of work. I have exercising that takes time away from my job. And as getting older, like I definitely prioritize that over more than anything else because I don't want to get old and decrepit and fall apart. My two kids are in 3 different sports, and for some reason my wife and I became sports parents. So I'm like, if I have time, I'm not going to use it to sit down and write down what I want to do. I'm just going to go do it. And also video games exist, so that takes up even more of my time. But yeah, I'm interested to how you guys see planning, and if you do plan, what you plan, because I don't plan anything like at all. Just I have no time for that. So I'll start with you, Scott. What about you?
So I think I'm a little bit similar to you in that I would like to plan more than I do, that I just really don't. I do some planning when I acquire things in my stash or when I like buy aftermarket. If I see Jensen working on something and I'm like, hey, where'd you get that barrel or something, and then I'll go and, pick something up if I have something in my stash. And so I guess that's sort of planning, but one of my best buddies, Josh Buck, he has a book, kind of like you alluded to, TJ, and he writes ideas down, and I kind of wish I was a lot better at that. He also, as he does builds, he'll make notes, and then if he needs to repair a model later on, or if he puts a model away and comes back to it a year or two later, he knows what his paint mixes look like and what, or things that he still needs to bring that build across the finish line. So I would like to be better at that, but I'm really not very good at it either. I'm a lot like you, I think, TJ.
I kind of wish that I did write stuff down, because then I would have known that I had a almost completely built Y-wing from 10 years ago, and I probably would have built and finished it already.
It's a good surprise to have, though. I mean,
I guess
I looked on your feed today and I was like, oh man, this is just going to feed into the TJ myth. The guy snaps his fingers and, hey, look, a Y-wing.
Yeah, I think, was it Zach was like, when did you build a Y-wing? I'm like, when you were in elementary school, I think. So like, I don't know. Like, it was a long time ago, man. I found it.
When you were going to the prom?
Oh no, he was probably in elementary school when I built that thing. Zach is not that old.
Oh,
sorry, buddy. Yeah, maybe he was in 6th grade, but I also don't. That might be elementary school in Tennessee. I don't know. Some places in Virginia that's still elementary, but yeah, that's pretty funny. What about you, Doug? Do you plan anything at all ever?
Well, I plan only on like the group builds with a time restraint, especially like when we do our 48-hour group builds with models for heroes or scale models for vets. In those cases, then I will go into it making sure I have all my paints, all my decals, everything's ready to go. I've kind of got in my mind a plan. I don't write it down, but a plan in my mind of how I'm going to accomplish things and what my timeframes need to be so that I can finish in time. Other than that, I think that your spreadsheet is more planning than I do for most things. I mean, it's just, I didn't think about it. I forget sometimes how many models I have already started. I look up on these shelves and I think, oh man, those 3 are well and truly started, and I don't know when I'll get back to them. So not something that I do much of. I probably should, but I'm fine with where I'm at right now.
I highly recommend the spreadsheet method. I only did that because I get a little loose with the wallet sometimes, and I don't like buying crap that I already have. And what I should really put on the spreadsheet is the paint I have, because the number of times I've bought a bottle of paint where I'm like, ooh, I like this color, and then I get home and put it in the drawer. I'm like, damn, I already have 2 of these. what am I going to do with 3 bottles of this one paint that I just thought looked cool? It's not like olive drab where I know I'm going to use, 8 bottles, on, various projects. It's like this random light blue that I think looks really neat that I'm probably use one time. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I already bought this. Justin, I'm going to go over to you. Please tell me you plan something.
I might have to disappoint you. I'm not going to say that I'm quite. I mean, do we consider buying aftermarket planning? I don't know.
I mean, I would say
mean,
so, because I know for me, sometimes I'll buy the aftermarket first, and then I'm like, ooh, I should probably buy a kit that goes with this. But I know some people will buy the kit and then, oh, I need this aftermarket, this and this.
Yeah, I'll say that I do have some projects that I do have planned. I have the AMK MiG 31, that big giant gray thing. And I think I literally have every bit of aftermarket for it. I've got like the metal landing gear and I've got exhausts and a cock. I mean, I've got so much stuff for that. So I think I said that there are some projects that I do plan, and there's other ones that I would like to plan. I was showing y'all before we kicked off. I've got the little black book, and I have literally I have builds in here where I have started the pay. I've started and I write down the title, what model it is, and then there's literally nothing after that. But the model's done. I mean, I finished the model, which is, that's cool. But no, I didn't write anything down. I have really good intentions, I think, sometimes. What I have found, as just writing down paint mixes is one of the biggest ones, especially for somebody like me who will put things away for an extended period of time, and then you come back and you're like, I have no idea what color that cockpit is. I mean, it's gray, but what kind of gray? Which one of the 1,500 bottles of paint? I hope my wife is not listening. I don't really have 1,500 bottles of paint. Not that she would care, but anyway, I just don't want anybody who might be outside Mordor to think I really have 1,500 bottles of paint, or anybody on the internet. I mean, I guess so. Whenever it comes to that, paint mixes are a good thing to at least plan or at least take notes. But and occasionally, I guess I do have the kit that I have planned out. The EF, I have the EF 111 that I've got kind of planned out too. I have that almost might be another. We were talking about magnum opuses earlier. That almost could be another magnum opus build for me. Is the EF 111 with the res kit exhaust and the whole front part of the airplane. It's all resin. That's another one that I've got planned out pretty well. I know which scheme I want to do. I think I watched a dog fights on that one. Those guys had huge brass balls flying in Iraq with no weapons at all. So I've always been really fascinated with that. But I mean, man, as far as writing down anything, kind of like Doug, I guess, if we have every year we do a March Madness build where you have 31 days to knock it out. So that you kind of do have to be a little bit, at least you got to make sure that you've got everything you need, because if you end up having to wait for something to show up, you won't finish. I built a U2, one of the AFE Club U2s last year for the March Madness build, and I had to make sure that I had everything on hand. So that's probably about as planny as I get. I'm kind of like you. I kind of shoot from the hip. I do have a question for you though, TJ. If maybe just to make myself feel better, what do you think the percentage of your kits that are started installed? Because I've been in the same place where it's like, hey, I'm going to sell some of these kits. Ooh, no, I'm not selling that one. Not selling that one either, because I've started it. So what do you think? If you had to look at your stash, what do you think percentage wise? I guess you could just open up your Excel spreadsheet and just do it real quick. But
or what percentage of kits I have that are started, or what level of started are they? Okay, what out of
started? Yeah.
Without I'm not looking.
You feel bad selling them.
I'm not looking at my spreadsheet. I'm trying to think. The last time I looked at it, I just updated it the other day. I think I had 160 kits. That's just kits. I don't have my figures and any of my wargaming stuff, and honestly, I don't have all my Bandai. I have a lot of Bandai Star Wars stuff. I haven't cataloged all that, and I probably should. I'd probably say out of all those, I think I have probably 20 that are started to some degree. Yeah, and
I think I'm way worse.
Now I'm gonna have to look, because now I'm really curious. I feel like it might be more than that, because I definitely feel like when I went through all that crap behind me the other day, everything I open, I'm like, oh crap, I forgot I started this. Damn it. I'm not selling this. And of course, it's all stuff that I know would sell. I would know would sell well, which is probably why I bought it. And yeah, maybe 25. So whatever that is of the percentage of kits I have, I don't know. I am not good at math, but yeah, more than I would like. Let's just put it that way. Definitely more than I would like.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get on your level and maybe get an Excel spreadsheet. Hey, are you an Excel spreadsheet guy?
Not really.
Is that a pretty? I was going to say, would you mind maybe sending me that? I could deal, like my own deal.
I can just send you the template I used. No, I'm not really. I know how to use Excel, or in Google Sheets. It's the same damn thing. I had a job where we had to use a lot of Excel spreadsheets, so I had to teach myself how to do it. Because as a construction worker, you don't use a lot of Excel spreadsheets in your day to day. But I did a job for a while where we did have a lot of spreadsheets. So I learned how, and I had a lot of free time with the one job I had. So I taught myself. I can't do everything, but I can make it work for me. But yeah, I'll send you my template because I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. I'd love to see it. That I can make things just, again, just having to occasionally use one and create a spreadsheet or whatever. But I would really like to, I don't know. I always like to see what other people are doing. I'll do that, and then I'll send you mine, and then you can click the button to see which one started and see how much more yellow I probably have than you. I'm just, I'm looking in the closet over here, and it's like, ooh. And I mean, some of these are like half built or more. I don't know. I don't know if there's such thing as like adult onset ADD, but I feel like if there is, I may have it.
It's not the shelf of doom, bro. It's the shelf of I'm going to finish that someday.
One day. One year I'm going to finish like 45 models, One year I'm going to.
Okay, so I will say, I just pulled up my sheet. I have 173 models on this list. I have started 32 of them.
Ooh, like 20%, man.
Is that 20%?
That's again, about 20%.
Bad math. Yeah. And like I said, some good stuff on this list too, which annoys me because I could sell a number of these and come out on top.
Justin, do we hear 25? Do we hear 30?
No, man. I bet I've got a 100 and I bet I've got 100. I bet I've got 100 kits. Let's just say I've got 100 kits. And I bet I've started 50 of them, if not more. But a lot of the time, okay, so a lot of them, whenever I say started, they're not necessarily even painted. So one of my favorite things to do is watch football in the fall. And one of my other favorite things to do is build models, if y'all didn't know that. And so what I like to do is get a beer, sit down on the couch with a TV tray, get a model, and just start cutting parts off and start fitting and stuff like that. So a lot of those are kind of like that, I feel like I can still sell those, but I bet I still couldn't sell them for full price, so, but I bet I'm probably 50% started at least.
Wow.
What I've started doing is making sure that I leave the plastic on them. I'm like, nope, don't touch the plastic. If I don't touch the plastic, I'm usually pretty good. But if the box is open, I'll get back to y'all. How about that? Once I get that spreadsheet from TJ, once I get that template from him, I'm going to do it.
So that brings
I'll share it with the world, and I'll be ashamed.
That brings up a good question. Do you clip off all your parts before you build something, or do you build as you clip your parts off as you build?
Ooh, because that's planning.
Yeah.
I do, and not necessarily all of it, but I will straight. And I've learned this from my buddy Gabe Pincelli. I don't know if you guys know him well or no. I know that you'll know him. He will tape up an entire build. Like he'll tape up the wings. He'll tape up. I mean, he'll build the entire thing, and then he knows where he's got to work on stuff. Right. And so I've kind of learned that from him. That is one way that you can do yourself a massive favor. Yeah. So that's planning.
Yeah.
I never really thought about it that way, but yeah, I guess I do plan when it comes to that. I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll go
tape up the whole thing.
Yeah. I go a couple steps ahead, and I'll cut like 3 or 4 steps ahead, all my stuff out, and then clean it, and then put 3 or 4 steps together, then go to the next 3 or 4. That's yeah, you're right. That is
yeah. If it's something repetitive, like if I build a Sherman, like I know how to build the bogies, right?
Right.
And so I'll clip off every single bogey piece. I'll put each bogey, the 2 lefts or the 3 lefts, the 3 rights. I'll put all those parts in little piles. That's just efficiency in my mind, because you got to clean all the pieces, then you got to stick them all together. So I'm like, I don't like clipping stuff off. It's like one of my least favorite parts, and I hate cleaning. Right. But I like putting stuff together. But so to kind of take a little bit of a tangent. We'll get back to the planning, but Justin brought this up, and I think this also probably would have been a really awesome topic, just putting stuff together. I also really like to do that. That's probably the main reason why I have so many started kits, because sometimes I'm not in the mood. I love painting. It's probably my favorite part of model building is just actually painting, because that's, when you can be creative and you can do, especially a lot of the stuff that I paint, like machining creator stuff, like painting that is like the most fun, because literally do whatever you want. But I also really like to just put stuff together. And sometimes, even though like I have a full setup and I don't have to worry about taking stuff out and getting set up, I'm ready to go at any time. All I gotta do is turn my air compressor on. But man, sometimes just like sitting down and like opening a kit, taking the pieces out, taking the frames out and start just putting stuff together, man, it feels so good. And I don't drink a lot of beer. I used to, but I try not to these days. But yeah, having a nice drink or and just sitting down and man, just putting stuff together. It's very satisfying, right? And like I'll have a bad day at work or just not be feeling myself, and I'm just gonna put something together. And also, probably like a lot of you guys, I also go in fits and starts a lot of times, and I have the reputation of finishing a lot of stuff, but I don't really, because a lot of that stuff was, as we've just explained, was already started. So finishing it didn't take as much effort as it looks like. Yeah, I just wanted to throw it out there, man. Sometimes just putting stuff together, just as someone who builds things for a living, obviously I like to do that, or I wouldn't do it for a living. Well, that's probably not true. I mean, there's other things I'd rather do, but I'm good at what I do, so I guess whatever. But yeah, just I like seeing stuff come up from nothing, right? Like, when we build a building, like there's not a building there, and then when you're done, there's a building. Well, I worry about the pipes inside the building, but same thing. And the same thing, like, you start with a pile of nothing, and by the time you're done, there's an object sitting on your bench. And that's a neat feeling, I guess. And yeah, it's very therapeutic sometimes.
I agree with 100%. I mean, that's like you. I love watching or being part of that process of taking nothing into something. And I think sometimes some of the best models I've seen are not painted. They're just sitting on a table complete with all their, you could see what the person did to that model, like all the photo etch they added, all the work they did on the bogies or whatever it was. And sometimes that's impressive to me. But I'm with you, is that it's such, the process of putting something together is so relaxing to me that I'm like you. I just love to do it. And it could be everything from a figure to whatever, but it's just that process of putting something together or changing something or modifying something and making it. I love that process.
So, Grant, since you're next in line, what about you? Do you plan anything? I mean, I kind of already feel I know your answer, but yeah, let's hear it.
I do plan a little bit. I mean, I will say that I do write down in books. I have a notebook that I have. It doesn't go back to when I was 8 years old or anything like that, but it's a notebook that I have like paint schemes in, color schemes. Especially, I like to do a lot of figures, Warhammer figures, and I like to do Civil War figures. And there's certain color tones that you need to really kind of be close at. So I do that. I do plan a little bit by cutting pieces off, like we just talked about. I guess a little bit. So and Doug is 100% right. Also, those 48-hour builds when we do stuff like that, or we're doing a group build. Like a group build we're going to talk about here in a little bit is the facade build. I planned a little bit for that. I guess I would say I plan to a point, but I'm not one of those people that plans, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and do this. Okay, now I got to go buy the model, and then I got to buy this part. And I don't do it that way. I kind of find something that I like, and I kind of start planning around that way. So I would say, do I plan? Yeah, I do a little bit, but I don't in a little bit. So I'm kind of in between, I guess, if that makes sense at all. That's where I stand. I definitely, when I'm doing something for Star Wars, like if I'm working on a Bandai kit, I like to look for specific things, so I know I'm not just jumping on something out of the blue. But yeah, I guess I plan a little bit. I would say yes.
All right, Jensen, let's hear it. You've been awfully quiet.
It's no, I don't plan. The only planning I do really is like before the project even starts, and that's okay, what kit am I going to build, by what manufacturer, what aftermarket do I need for it, and what type of scheme or whatever am I going to model the model in. Literally the second that build starts, there is no planning. I just go with it until it's done. Only kind of planning, quote unquote, I do is say if it's going to be in a scene, vignette, diorama, whatever, if any modifications need to be done to the kit for it to be in keeping with that. So if the suspension needs to be movable or positioned in a certain way, or if there's any modifications need to be done to make that model accurate for where it's being depicted. The only planning I'll do and kind of really stick to is ones I have to do. So, for example, if you get all the Edward aftermarket or 3D printed resin stuff for aircraft or tanks or whatever, if the actual plastic needs modifying, like the engine, or if you're adding the gun bays, and I know on the 109s earlier on, you had to cut a few panels out so you could fit the actual engine and gun bays. I'd plan for stuff like that at the beginning so I could mark out on the plastic what needs cutting. I'd make all those modifications early and get that out of the way before the actual build starts. So I'd plan the modifications first, make those modifications, then I can begin the build. So to say I don't plan, that's kind of a lie, because in essence I am planning. I'm planning the modifications first, then the build. But yeah, kind of once the model's started or whatever, there is no planning. I don't really plan what type of paint I'm going to use, what products I'm going to use to weather it. I kind of just look up at the shelf at the time and think, I'll go with that today, because I think as a hobby I want to kind of enjoy. I don't want to overthink it. I want to keep it as simple as possible. So if I don't want to try and plan stuff when I'm trying to plan other stuff in life. So I try and keep this as simple as possible nowadays and just enjoy it for what it is. And yeah, just really just go with the flow and see where it takes me.
Right on. Yeah. Does anyone have anything else they would like to add?
I want to bring up something Jensen said too, is that you brought up a great point, Jensen, is that if you plan, I think if you plan it, you start to overthink it. And then when you overthink it, it doesn't get done. It goes into a box and it goes right back on the shelf for me. So I think that's a great point. When you look at it that way, I think it's more important not to plan it, because then you don't have that, that set standard that you're looking. So that's a great point.
What Grant just said just made me remember something really funny that happened to me. It's a little bit of a C story, even though not really, but it's a work story. I work with this guy named Evan, really good friend of mine. He has a tendency to overthink things, and he's now a mechanic. He started working with me when he's an apprentice, and part of working with me, I was trying to teach, like, hey, you don't have to overthink it. Sometimes just don't think about it. Just trust your instinct and just do what you need to do. He was piping something out. I don't know. And shortly after I gave him that talk, he piped something out, and it was effed up. And I walked up to him because he was working for me. I'm like, Evan, what the hell did you just do? And he's like, well, TJ, in my defense, you told me not to think about it. I was like, I can't even be mad at you right now. I'm like, you're right. I did tell you. I told you not to think. I was like, okay, sometimes you have to think a little bit. So you just need to strike that balance between overthinking and doing no thinking at all. And then you'll be in the right spot. And I just was like, okay. And I just laughed, and I was like, just fix it. Just please fix it so we can finish this. And I just laughed and walked away.
That's hilarious when your words come home to roost. But, I was just going to say, I think for me, one thing I didn't talk about before is I have done builds where I did a lot of planning. When I did my slave one, we talked about this earlier. I printed out all the photos I could get of the studio models and put them up on my wall. And I spent a lot of time planning, because there's different areas of that ship where there's different kinds of chipping. And, I knew if I was going to get the look I was after, I had to plan how to do each individual section. And so I think if you're doing a build where you're doing like a tank or a certain, Justin, a certain MiG-21 that you absolutely think is just really great, and you have all these photos of it and you're really doing that kind of a build, I think planning is almost an essential part of a project like that. But I think for me, most of the time, you guys know me, when I build a Y-wing, I generally build a non-cannon. Nobody needs to see another goal leader Y-wing, right? So I'm doing a non-cannon one. So I don't usually do that kind of planning on very many of my builds, but I have done it before. Anyway, Jensen, the gentleman yields the floor.
Don't get me wrong, like, people who do plan, massive admiration, especially if they stick to the plan. It's like, that's organization I wish I could only hope for. There's a reason I don't plan is, once I remember I was talking to Jackson and Zach about a project I wanted to do. It's an ICM, Second World War. I think it's a Leyland truck, and it's got the rocket launchers on the back. It's got the crew of 5. But I've also got the mini art. It's Soviet soldiers, and they're in a wooden cabin eating dinner, and they're just chilling out. It's whatever. And I was thinking of a scene. I was like, that'd be cool. So on the diorama, I want a base. I want it to be really snowy. I want the house that they're all staying in to be on the corner. So you see the outside of the house, but the house also has an interior with the crew inside. So it's like an internal and external scene. And then I started talking about all that and all the planning that goes into it. And I was like, okay, so I know how I'm going to build it, all this stuff that's involved. And by the time I finished talking about it, I'm like, I've just overwhelmed myself by planning this. And now I don't want to do it because I've just kind of talked myself out of it because of how much work's involved rather than just doing the work. It's like, oh, this is going to be a long-term project and I'm going to need to buy this, I'm going to need to buy that. And it's just instantly, I've just like, okay, maybe in a few years.
Yeah, I do that all the time. I'm the same as you. I go into these, and I think that's why I've never built an aircraft, just because I think, okay, I've got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. And I talk to guys like, Justin and all these guys here, and I'm looking at these aircraft and I'm like, how do they do it? I just need to shut up and do it is what I need to do instead of overthinking it. And so, that it's just one of those things. And I'm like you said, it's just, you talk yourself right out of, you've bought all this stuff already. Now you're like, okay, well, let's just going to go over here. And so,
and
what else?
And I'm a planner. In life, I plan everything. Like just as TJ,
do you?
how annoying I was for planning stuff. Like I plan stuff months in advance, and I start to piss everyone off with it. But when it comes to modeling, I can't do it.
And Grant, let's be honest. The real reason why you haven't built an airplane is because airplanes are for nerds.
No. Oh, I could see someone's upset. No, yeah, I'm not going to say that, but yeah.
I'll say it.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Pretty nerdy bunch, that's for sure. It's a pretty nerdy bunch. Jensen, I kind of wonder if you don't. You're saying that you plan a lot in life. And so why are you going to take your hobby and why are you going to do the same thing? You know what I mean? It's like, hey, this is a place that you see people talk about that a lot. This is a place I come to relax. I know I was talking to some guys who, there's been a lot of IPMS drama. Obviously, we're not going to rehash any of it or anything like that. But there's a lot of people who are saying the same thing. Hey, man, this is where I come to do like my chill. And all I've been hearing is drama. It's like, I just did drama all day. Like, do I want more drama now? Like, even in my hobby. So maybe that's kind of the same thing. You got a lot of planning, in life. So, hey, whenever it comes to your hobby, just go with it and see kind of where you go.
Exactly that.
Well, I think that was a good little discussion, even a nice little sidebar in there too. Hopefully, I know we were kind of all on the same page, but I think we all kind of had a unique view on it. And that was fun. I like that. So moving on, I just want to remind everyone of the Operation Overlord Special Interest Group and group build over on Facebook that we are hosting with the Model Geeks. It's going strong. People are joining all the time. And remember, it is also a SIG. So it's not just for building builds for Madison next year. It is anything related to Operation Overlord. So I saw someone recommend a book, a book about the campaign. That kind of stuff. We love that stuff. And, I like books. I'm a big dork too. I have a book collection. And anything related to the campaign, to the vehicles and the men involved in the campaign, that's all welcome there. It's not just models. Of course, models are great, and it's ostensibly for the display at Madison next year. But yes, please feel free, post your cool references, post book recommendations, any kind of source for information that someone might be interested in related to the SIG, because I think it's important to stress it is also a SIG, and SIGs are not just about, hey, I build this. It's also about the subject in all the information, right? So it should be a wellspring of information about Operation Overlord and the opening of the second front in Europe. And so it's going good. If you're interested in putting some work on display next year, join up. Comment on the post. I'm behind on updating the spreadsheet. I think Frill is too. You don't worry about it, man. Guys, people, if you don't see it immediately, that's, just start building. That's all it's all about. You don't need anyone's permission to start building something for the group build. That the list and the spreadsheet is just for our own edification and for will be finalized before we put everything on display in Madison, so we can properly attribute all of the amazing builds that I know will be on the table. That's what that spreadsheet is for. It's not permission. I can't stress that enough. If you don't see your name on the spreadsheet right away, don't let that, don't slow down, man. Build that model. We will get you on the list. It's all are welcome. So yeah. Hopefully if people are hearing that and they're, I'm busy at work. I know Frill's busy at work. I got a lot of stuff going on. I got a lot of balls up in the air, and I'll get to it. I'm sure Frill will too at some point. So yes, please, if you're in the group build, start building. If you're not, join up, find a cool subject and build. And a couple of reminders. No, you can build whatever you want related to the Operation Overlord. Doubles are fine. Triples are fine. Literally build what you want. It's really loose. I hesitate to even use the word rules. They're more like guidelines to the group build. It is not that highly structured. So yes, please find us, Operation Overlord group build on Facebook, join up, and let's build those awesome models and get them on the table in Madison.
All right, let's talk about the facade group build. We're doing a group build with Rick Lawler for the facades. It started on September 1st and it's going through the end of October. If you don't know about it, you can check our webpage out. We have several people on there. There's no specific page for this one. It's just everybody join in kind of build. You don't even have to have the AK kit. You can make your own facade. And, we're seeing a lot of those homemade facades going up lately, and they're looking really great. Doug has already got one on there. JB's got one. He's going to have another one here soon. Rick Lawler's got two at least. I'm working on one, and the other guys here are working on some stuff also. So again, if you want to look at the Facebook page, and Rick Lawler's propaganda is also helping us out with this. The facade build started September 1st, and it goes through the end of October of this year. Please post pictures. And like I said, you don't have to have a specific kit. Just take some styrofoam and start cutting and sculpting and doing what you want and make a facade for it. And it'd be great. All right, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Remember, when you post those on the page, use hashtag facade group build.
All right. You all know that we enjoy on this page, on the Triple P, we love to highlight and shout out individual builds that have been shared on our Facebook page. And so we're going to do that right now. I'm going to start out. I actually picked two. Tim Heppelstone did I'm not sure how to pronounce her, Boudica bust from FER Miniatures. She's
Boudica.
That sounds much better than Boudica. Anyway, she's got long red hair and she's got this just the skin tones and her hair. And what he did especially stands out because his comment on it was he was trying his hand at the black magic that is bust painting. He's not done this before. And so what he was able to accomplish with this bust is really good. I mean, really good. I'd be very happy to be able to do that my own self. So way to go, Tim. I'd also like to quick shout out for Stuart McClellan's Gamera by X Plus. I've never said this on the show before, but Gamera is the best of all of the monsters. I love that one. That was my favorite as a kid, and he's my favorite today. So anyhow, that's what I see. Grant?
Mine is from a gentleman, doesn't have his real name. He goes by the Norwegian, so it could be the entire country, or I don't know, but he's doing a bust of Saladin, pronounce that right. So he's only got the facial tones down and the skin tones down, but the work he's done on those tones has been beautiful. It's on a bust of the figure, and I don't know who makes the figure, but it's really, really good. So if you just look for the Norwegian on the page, and you'll see the flesh tones and stuff like that. It's really good, and it's a very good learning point. His eyes are fantastic on it, and the tones and colors are just really. And let's go to Jensen. What do you got?
I'm going to head back to some armor. Pete Koklo, the M18 Hellcat. The olive drab he's done on that is pretty special. It's really nice. I know I saw this earlier on in the week or later last week, and just instantly my eyes were drawn to it. That's really the type of olive drab I like. It's lighter. It's going more towards a lighter yellowy color, which is I just absolutely love. It's just beautiful. Really, really good olive drab on that, and the M18 is just a beautiful vehicle as well. But yeah, I just really liked that one.
Pete did a great job. I agree with you, Jensen. It looks really, really good. For my selection, I picked, it's actually somebody in the interview later with Andy Gulden that you'll hear. He talks about Doug Cohen. I'm not familiar with him. I'm sure TJ and Grant are, but posted some Civil War figures of Doug's on our group page. And just the painting and the faces and everything just really, I don't know. I really feel like as much as all my mechanical models that I do, people that paint figures and can paint faces and bring a scene to life, that's just a special talent. I don't have it, but I think it's tremendous. So if you haven't looked at it, check out Doug Cohen's Civil War figures. Really, really nice. Beautiful.
Yeah, he does some really fantastic work. The Cashtown Road is the name of the diorama. It's the one of the pictures from the start of the Gettysburg battle that he did. One thing about David Cohen, and I hate to interrupt him, sorry, Scott, but David does all his own figures. He sculpts everything except for the faces usually and the feet and the hands, but everything else he does, and he's really fast. He's been doing this for a couple of weeks now, and he's already got 6+ figures plus, the main figure, which is going to be on a horse, and another gentleman with him on. So it's going to be really interesting. Doug Cohen had some really good work in nationals. He did one of the Iwo Jima, the raising of the flag at Iwo Jima. That was scratch built by him, and there's a couple other ones. And he's part of the North Texas Figure Club. You search North Texas figures on Facebook, you'll see their Facebook page, and I definitely recommend you guys like it. It's a great bunch of stuff.
What scale is that?
He's usually about 54 millimeter. He does 70 millimeter, but that's pretty much 54 millimeter is most of his stuff.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, he's a fantastic builder.
I had the pleasure of judging with Doug Cohen at the Atlanta Figure Show earlier this year. Hilarious guy, one of the funniest guys in scale modeling. Dude's an absolute riot, really good figure painter, and just a good guy. The whole time judging, he kept the whole team in stitches. Like literally one of the funniest people I'd ever met. And his son was with him, and he tagged along. His son is not a modeler, he's not a painter, but I asked him, is your dad always like this? And he's like, yes, he is. I was like, man, that sounds really fun, actually. And great guy. He had a good time. I had a good time with him. Taught me a lot about judging, so it was good.
What did you see, TJ?
For mine, I chose Adam Jackson's Tamiya M51. M51 sweet. Super Shermans are rad. I mean, who doesn't like a Sherman? Who doesn't like an upgun Sherman? He did a good job. He's done a string of armor models, and that's one of the ones he's posted recently, and it was my favorite of the ones that he put up. I think he said it's his second favorite tank too, after the Merkava, which not really a Merkava fan, but I am a Sherman fan and an M51 fan. So yes, tip of the hat, man. Good stuff.
Yeah, Adam got to go to Latrun earlier this year and posted some pictures to the posse of his visit, and he's done some really, really nice work subsequent to that. So
Justin, did you see anything on our page that stood out to you?
Yeah, man, I did. I think it's kind of cool too, because it kind of wraps back to the whole planning thing. But John Bryan who is the ultimate planner as far as like his collection and whatnot. If you guys haven't ever seen any of his stuff, I know that y'all have, but he's working on the old tool Edward 198. Was it an A5? I can't remember which one it was. He's building it as like a after the war deal. But man, he's got some pictures of some stuff he just did real quick, and he always builds his stuff with the canopy closed. And so I think he's really done a great job. Like as far as if you look at some of his cockpit photos, it's going to be nice and bright, and it's going to still pop underneath the glass. And he's just such a good modeler. And every time I see his stuff, I'm like, man, I want to be like him when I grow up. I think we're like I think he was born like a day before I was, or something like that. Like we're nearly the same age. He's obviously, I think he's got like a PhD in geology. I can't remember exactly what it is, but the guy's a freaking smart. He is a smart dude, and it is so cool to just kind of watch how he goes through his builds. And oh man, dude's awesome.
Yeah, when we had him on the show, we talked with him. He's pretty amazing. He's very tenacious. He never lets a kit beat him, and he never works on more than one at a time. Just quite a modeler.
I want to be like him. See, I'm telling you, man, I want to be like that guy.
All right. Are you a member of the Triple P, guys? If not, we highly recommend it. The Triple P on Facebook, the Plastic Posse Facebook page, is where we're getting all of this work submitted. We're seeing lots of work from some fantastic modelers from all over the world, and it's a lot of fun. So join up and share what you're doing. Give feedback. There's just a lot to share, and it's definitely worth your time. We've got some upcoming model shows and events. Scott, do you want to share those?
Yeah, you bet. We've got quite a few, so we'll go through these kind of quick. We have the Central Arkansas Scale Modelers 22nd annual show, September 29th and 30th. That's at the Jacksonville Community Center, which is a few miles northeast of Little Rock. Shout out to our buddy Ken Childress, who's in that group. And again, it's going to have seminars by Jim Rice, Rusty Nail, and Ken. So if you're in the area, you're going to want to make sure and check that out. We also have Saturday, September 30th, the Palouse, I hope I'm saying that wrong, or saying that right, Palouse Area Modelers presenting their 27th annual scale model show up in Moscow, Idaho. It's at the 1912 Center, and you can find out more details online about that. We have the NCMSS 62nd annual show at the Springfield Hilton in Springfield, Virginia from 9 to 5. And TJ is going to be there, I believe, at the Novamps table in the vendor room. So make sure you stop by and say hi, get a picture, maybe autographs. I think he usually gives those out for pretty good prices. So anyway, that'll be fun. IPMS Orange Con is in Buena Park, California on October 1st. Mr. Mayberry, I believe, will be in attendance at that show. He does charge $5 for his autographs, but he's pretty nice.
As long as he's in pesos, we're good.
Yeah, exactly. We have PatCon, PATCON on Sunday, October 1st as well, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. in Hudson, Massachusetts at the Hudson Elks Lodge. And PAXCon, source of our last episode, Geek Fest. It's at the Hollywood Volunteer Fire Department in Hollywood, Maryland. That's October 7th. If you're in the area, please go. If you heard our last episode, you know those guys have poured their heart and soul and sweat and everything else into that show. It's going to be really good. I believe TJ will be at that one as well.
I will.
This year's IPMS Vancouver show is going to be at the Bonsoir Recreation Complex in Burnaby, British Columbia. That's on October 7th as well. And also on October 7th, we have the Reno IPMS High Rollers show from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can check out more details over at renohighrollers.com. The Charleston SCMA show is on October 14th. That's in Charleston, South Carolina. It's going to be at the Cokesbury United Methodist Church Family Center. We have IPMS Duneland's 2023 model contest also on October 14th. That's at the Hobart Moose Lodge in Hobart, Indiana. If you need more information, you can contact John Fluck at jfluck@aol.com. Wow, AOL.com. I haven't seen one of those in a bit. We have CapCon. It's at the Canadian War Museum in Ottawa, also on the 14th. You can see all the details at IPMSOttawa.com. Scale Model Challenge in Eindhoven, October 14th and 15th. Our very own Jensen and TJ and JB will be in attendance there. It's going to be amazing. Looking forward to seeing some photos and video from that. We have the MMSI show, which I'm very excited about. Grant and myself and Aaron Cook will all be going to that. That's at the Chicago Marriott in Schaumburg, Illinois, from October 20th and 21st. You'll hear more about that in our interview with Andy Gulden showing up in the show pretty soon. Saturday, October 21st, we also have the Oregon Mid-Valley Madness show. It's at the Lynn County Expo Center in Albany, Oregon. November 4th, we have the All Things Recce show, aka Region 12 Model Contest. That's in Dallas, North Carolina. You can get more details on that at ipmscharlotte.org. Sunday, November 5th, we have the Cleveland Model Show. That's in Kirtland, Ohio. You can see Cleveland Model Show on Facebook for more details on that one. The Bay Colony Modelers Club is going to present their BayCon 2023, not Bacon, BayCon 2023, Sunday, November 5th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. in Franklin, Massachusetts. And last but certainly not least, we have the one, the only Scale Model World over in the UK at Telford. That's November 11th and 12th.
That's in Shropshire, right? That's where that is?
Yeah, Shropshire. Yes. We'll be having, I think there's a restaurant there that serves eggplant, if I'm not mistaken.
Shropshire. Just
That's what
rolls off
I
the
said. Shropshire.
Shropshire. So
Okay,
much emphasis on the
you-
Shire.
You say it. Say it.
Shropshire.
That's what I said. Shropshire.
Read it. You didn't.
I 100% did.
Say it again.
Shropshire.
Shropshire.
We're saying the same word.
We're not saying the same thing.
We 100% are.
Just not. We're not.
Now that TJ has Jensen spun all the way up.
No, Shropshire.
Shropshire.
Sure. Just Shropshire. Every shire is just shire.
You've learned how to speak English.
I'm not going to bring up the Kansas Arkansas thing again.
I've watched The Lord of the Rings and it was pronounced the Shire, not the Shire.
But if you speak properly, like a human would, not a robot.
So you're telling me that
Sure.
that Tolkien himself called it
We're
the
off
Shire.
to the shiz. Yeah, we're off to the
No,
shiz.
don't believe it.
Don't care, I'm from here. We haven't done this in a bit. But just a reminder that the Plastic Posse is just one of several scale model podcasts. You can head over to modelpodcast.com and you can find links to all of them there, as well as several model-related blogs and vlogs, such as Scale Canadian TV with our friend Jim Bates.
Okay, looks like it's time for our main feature, our interview with master modeler Andy Gulden. He talks about his own work, MMSI, and open system judging. And that was a few of our guys. Who was that, Scott? You, and who else was with you?
Grant and JB as well.
Wonderful. All right, have a listen and enjoy.
Well, we are here today with Andy Gulden, who is in every way that you can describe it, a master modeler. I got to meet Andy for the first time last year at MMSI. Looking forward to getting reacquainted with him at this year's MMSI. And I was walking around looking at all the entries, and I saw this 1/16 scale diorama called the Lions of Casino. And I thought, oh man, this guy knows what he's doing. This is amazing. And got to meet Andy and shake his hand, and he was very, very gracious and spent a lot of time with me. So anyway, Andy, it's been almost a year, but thanks for coming on to the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I was looking forward to this when we talked last year. Should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I also have Grant and JB with me as well. How you doing, guys?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm excited to be here. You know, Andy, I have a book in front of me. I've seen your work for many years. I'd also like to call out, you probably don't remember this, but you actually signed it at one point.
Yeah, was that that was the year it came out? I think we did
it was World Expo.
Was it World Expo? Okay. Yeah, because that's year it came out that year. Then I think we did a book signing for that at the Chicago show the following year. I think everybody was there except for Roy Wells. So you may have everybody, because I think Roy was at that show. You may have all six of us.
Yeah, I think I have everybody.
Or seven of us. Yeah.
I can't figure out the scribbles, but there are 7 scribbles here. I make out yours in the bottom left because you have a distinct A and G.
Okay.
But yeah, everything else is kind of just scribbled. But and John Rosengrantz is decent. But yeah, no,
Awesome.
I'm excited. I've known your work for a very long time, even going way past, way before that, to early days of amps and Nats when they're in the Midwest. So excited to jump into it.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, just to get started, Andy, for those of our listeners out there that aren't familiar with you and your work, tell us a little bit about who Andy is and kind of how you got started.
Well, I don't know, just like everybody else. I think I'm just a modeler. I do it for fun. It's my way to relax, my way to, unwind after a day of work or whatever. And I definitely have a love of history, and this kind of, obviously is a very, it's tied to it in so many different ways, from World War II to any type of historical, time frame. You can visualize or bring that history to life while you're doing this. So it's always kind of gone hand in hand with me. Like most of us, I started modeling probably in, my early teens. First things I really took seriously, I took the Tamiya Formula 1 120 scale of cars. That was my first, my first like real models. My brother was big into them, so I'd buy them for him for Christmas, and then I'd buy one for myself. Or at that time, you'd talk your mom or dad into buying it for you because you couldn't afford the $7 F1 car in 1982. But so I kind of got into that. And then when the hobby shop would only carry, 3 of them. So I built the 3 as many times as I could, and all, horribly put together. Then I kind of branched out into military stuff. It was, go to Kmart and you could get your B-17s and get your SBDs and your, all the old monogram kits and stuff. And you could get their tanks and stuff like that. So that kind of got me going. And then probably, I don't know, maybe 15, 16 years old, I discovered a Verlinden hobby shop I would go to, somewhat had one of his showcases. And I was like, wow, you can really do that with a model. And I was just like, it felt like something that I could never get to or never achieve. And then I really never stopped modeling. I just kept going. I just kept, it wasn't something I did all the time, but I'd always have a project going. I always have a project, in a, Rubbermaid container in my closet. And if I had some free time or I was on, winter break or something, I'd take it out and work on it. And then I just started getting into it a little more and more. It was always the Verlinden stuff. I was by myself. I didn't know anybody. It was just kind of my way of, just taking up my free time and my hobby. And then it's just and then now it seems like it's been just a blur since then. I went to my first show, I believe I was telling Scott before. My first show was the Chicago show, probably in 2001, maybe 2002. And then that just, as excited as I was about the hobby myself, seeing what other people were doing just kickstarted my entire drive into I guess whatever I am now. It started by that, seeing Bill Horan stuff and seeing Mike Blank's work. Those guys were younger then too, but they were just, awe-inspiring. Douglas Lee used to come down from Canada and he'd bring his dioramas. And it was just, wow, can I ever do that? Would I ever be able to do that? And I still don't think I can do that, but other people tell me I can, but I'm probably my harshest critic. So.
Yeah, I think the collectors that buy your pieces might argue with that a little bit.
Yeah, probably.
We were talking before. Tell everybody about your first time entering a model at that first MMSI show.
Yeah, so I went. It was in Oak Brook, so not exactly the same venue it's in now. So I was going to a hobby shop, a local hobby shop, and they're like, "Oh man, your stuff is pretty good. You might want to go to the show. There was a show up in Oak Brook in the fall. Just go up there, enter your piece, and see." Just go see other people's work too. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. So I talked myself into going. I went by myself. I didn't know anybody. I entered in a competition on Saturday morning, and I looked around the tables and stuff and everything. And I probably don't even know what I was looking at the time. I couldn't tell you if something was scratch built or a build from a kit. I was just in awe by everything that was there. So at that time, staying at a show for 3 hours was a lot of time. So I stayed for my 3 hours, and I found somebody who I thought worked for the show. And I said, hey, I got to go. Can I take my piece and stuff? And they're like, oh, you don't want to wait for award ceremony? And I was like, I'm not going to win anything. So no, let me take my stuff. And they're like, okay, you can go if you want to. So I pack up my one tank and I go home, and not thinking anything of it, not knowing the process or anything. Somebody contacted me a couple of days later and said, hey, you want a medal. Would you like us to ship it to you? I was like, oh, great. Awesome. Yeah, sure. Here's my address. And they shipped it to me. Lo and behold, I won a gold medal. I had no idea what I had won until I opened up the case and I saw the gold medal there. It was a gold medal in ordnance for a Tiger II that I did with a full interior. And then that was my first of my first gold there. And then that kind of got me hooked. You need that to go back, I guess, or I did back then, so then I went back the next year, and then it was another gold. And then, I thought, well, let me try some figures. So I tried some figures, and, getting judged by the best in the world there. I think I got a bronze with my first, figure. I think it was a Greek hoplite I built probably in about 2003 or 4. And I got a bronze for that. And then that started the figures. That started the whole, getting into that. It was, okay, I got to get better at this now. I want to be like the other guys that are here, in these categories, in these different different genres, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, we were talking before, and you had kind of mentioned that you're really kind of drawn to not just the Chicago show, but MFCA, and those shows kind of have a little bit different vibe than the IPMS or AMP shows. What is it that keeps bringing you back to these open format, open judging system shows?
I guess nowadays, what I get from the show doesn't matter. It's going there to see the people and see the other work there. That's what I get from it. I usually travel with Greg Selar. We become good friends over shows. So it's good to go and hang out with him even though we're, 20 miles between us. I don't get to see him that often. So, to go and hang out with him for a weekend's always fun. And to see everybody else, just to see what other people bring, to see, what other people are doing. Like a lot of those guys, the Bill Horans, the Mike Blanks, Stephen Malia, Doug Cohen, guys like that, they don't show their stuff on Facebook. You don't get to see it that often. You'll see it after the show because everybody takes pictures of it. Oh my God, look at this. Look what Mike Blank did. So you still got to go there to see it. And then you still got to see it in person to get the inspiration that I need. I got to see it in person. So that's what keeps bringing me back. And then, then you can talk to them and you can hang out with them. And, I would call Mike Blank one of my good friends, and it's all because I decided to go to MMSI 20 years ago. So that's what brings me back is the inspiration I get for myself, having other people look at what I did and hopefully, tell me where I can get better at. Don't just tell me, oh, that's awesome. You did a great job. I don't need that. I don't need likes and thumbs up from Facebook, and I don't need it at a show either. But if Mike tells me that, man, your groundwork looks awesome. The way you merge your figures with the groundwork, is perfect. That's all I need. I'm good. My show was fun, but that's all I needed to hear. And so that's what keeps me going back, is the interaction.
Yeah, man, I definitely hear that. And, I had the same experience with you that, you have with these other people, getting to stand there next to your 1/16 scale diorama and hear, how you came up with the story and how you composed it and how you sculpted the figures and everything. It's just really, really inspirational. Like you said, viewing work in person is never the same as it is on Facebook. I mean, no,
it's way better.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. So you seem to do a lot with figures as well. What started you down the road of obviously not just painting figures, but sculpting figures?
Well, I don't sculpt. I've only sculpted 2 completely from scratch figures. I just do big modifications. But that comes from going to these different shows. You can't take, 2 figures out of some manufacturer's box and make a diorama. They're not, if you're lucky, they're meant to interact with themselves. They're not meant to interact with anything else. How do you do that? How do you get that, get them to interact? Well, you have to do a lot of work to them. You have to do stuff like that to get them to tell the story that you're trying to portray. So, it was kind of like, I thought you had to do it. There wasn't any other way to get there, and that was just all from seeing what I saw at these shows that lean more on the, the storytelling or the vignettes of, you got to get to that point. And how can you get to that point? You can't take the 2 figures out of the box. It just doesn't get you there, and they don't have to be sculpted from scratch. You can just do major conversions or, stuff like that to help tell your story. But, it is, I think I got there when I went over to that when I think the 2010, 12, I don't even remember now. IPMS Nationals they were in Omaha. I wanted best to show there. And that just turned off my, okay, I don't have to build just a tank on a piece of wood now. I want to do something else. For whatever reason that just kind of triggered, okay, I guess I topped out at that. I topped out at just building the tank on a base. So let's try something different. And I'm so glad I did. This is what I like the best. It's just something that I worked out, figured it out, and here I am into storytelling. It's not good that I have probably 300 tanks to build in my stash here, but because I don't go through them very quickly anymore.
Andy, what did you build for the 2010 Nats? Because I was there. I'm trying to recall. Was it the Panzer IV? What did you bring?
No, it was the sort of 2010 Nats. I did the Panther. I did the Flak Panther with the 4-barrel flak gun on the back. I think it's the first time I met you. I think Chris Morosco introduced me to you. He's like, hey, I want you to meet this young kid here. He liked your. I think Chris said that that you like something that I did, and I was like, oh, thanks. And that was it. I think probably it was like just like a crossing in like the hallway or something.
Yeah.
It was probably the first time I met you.
Yeah, I remember that Panther. Yeah, the quad 20 mil on top.
Yeah. So that won the best of show. It was a complete shock to me. I didn't even think it would win anything at the show. I'd gone to a couple of nationals before, and I got like what were like those. They did like the you got like the little medal after it, like after the first, second, third, they would give like whatever
get a little honorable mention, like, hey, thanks for coming, Andy. Better luck next thanks for
year. Coming. Yeah. So I got that like the first couple of times I went, and then I just, it was a complete shock. I wasn't even at the award ceremony. I had stepped in there just to see what's going on, and I walked in as soon as they announced my name for the best of show.
So I remember around that time, I want to say in the spring, did you go to AMPS as well with your big L70? I feel like that
was probably, that could have been maybe the year after. I don't know. I can't remember when that was. All that's kind of blurring together. That was at Auburn, right? It would have been would have been maybe the first show at Auburn, whenever that was, 2000, maybe 10 or so. Yeah, that was the L70. Yeah. That was my first 16 scale thing I ever did, was at L70.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I remember it. I actually took a picture of it. I'll drop it in our little group chat for our friends here so they can see. What else? I'm trying to remember what else you brought to that show. I think you took a Yog Tiger as well, 35th scale, but I could be
probably
wrong.
35th scale. Yeah, probably 35th scale. Yeah, I did. It's like I said, back then I was doing a ton of, just individual tanks. I was not into the dioramas and stuff. And that was my first diorama, was at L70. It was my first like real diorama, was at L70 as well.
Nice.
That was probably, if I was upstairs, I'd see I only have 2 awards hanging on my wall. It is it's my IPMS Best of Show, and then my Chicago award. Everything else is just in a box somewhere. But it would have been it was the same year as the IPMS Best of Show.
Nice. Yeah. I think the Yog Tiger was 332 with the top off.
Yep.
Showing the interior.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I dropped that in the chat as well. Doesn't suck, as I like to say. Yeah, that was a great show, and I mean, your work is so it's got a certain style, and maybe I'll even go back a little bit, stay in that time frame. I remember World Expo 2015. Seeing your work there, but I think even before that, I want to say around 2013. Well, maybe it was around that time. I went to M Model Shop.
Okay, yeah.
And I remember walking in. I knew Marty and Mary for a long time. I've known them probably since the early 2000s, because they vended at shows in Ohio.
You used to go to all the shows and stuff. Yep. Right.
Yeah. So great people, great shop. And I remember walking in there on a Saturday. I was alone. I think I went to Chicago for a job interview, and I went into their shop, and they always used to say, hey, stop by on a Saturday. There's always people there. Right. And I'm pretty sure it was like you and Greg and a bunch of others. And, I'm in my early 20s. I'm like, I ain't talking to these people. They don't want to talk to me. So I remember just like floating around the periphery, like in awe, like, oh man, I know all these people.
That's cool.
That's old John that had a little bit of fear of talking to new people. Now I would have came up and, giving you a hug and, broke your hand, shaking it from being awestruck. Yeah. Anyway, when we talk about that, it's interesting. I associate you and Greg. You're almost the same person in a sense, because I feel like you always go to the shows together, and it's like, well, hell, they're here. So every award in armor and diorama is claimed for. So I guess I should pick up ships or sci-fi. But maybe
that's not true.
Maybe talk a little bit about your style, Andy. I think when I look at your work, it's pretty iconic. You mentioned the history with Shep and probably Verlinden's influence.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about, when I look at your figures, I'm like, that's an Andy figure, and I just want to cue on that as well, because I really like your figures, and I'd love to know, at a high level, are you working with acrylics, oils, dare I say Humbrol enamels? Like, we'd just love to know more about your style in that regard.
I think it's to me, and like I said, I've definitely changed to what I do. Before, super detailed tank was the ultimate thing for me. Right now, it's to set a atmosphere or to set a scene or to set a feeling in my piece. So to me, the best way to do that is the figure. The figure can tell the story itself. You can do so much with the face, with the, with the body language, with the way you paint it. We can talk about that in a second. The way they interact with others. That's the way you tell the story. That's the way you set the scene. Everything doesn't have to tell a story, but I think everything has to have a feeling. It has to have a, like a, I don't know if you want to call it a sense of like desperation or, something. So how do you get to there? How do you do that? This is just to me, things have to be darker. They can't be, it's, bright green grass. If you ever see one of my pieces, you'll never see bright green grass anywhere. To me, that doesn't tell a story. It doesn't set a mood for the piece. So all that works together. The way the figure is painted, the figure has to blend with the groundwork. The groundwork has to help set the scene for the figure, so that's the way that that's my goal with every figure is to, if a vignette has 5 figures on it, each one of them has a purpose. One guy is probably the center of the scene. At least I try to make one guy maybe the center for the scene, and then everybody else supports that, and everything else has to tell his part. They have to tell their small part of his main story. So that's what I try to do. I don't know if I'm 100% successful at everything like that. And then the style has kind of come from kind of the darker style. It's probably more the Mike Blank. Greg's been a big influence, even though he's my friend. He probably hate me for saying this, but he's been a big influence. I saw his stuff in the Verlaine magazines, right? That set the scene, that told a story. Even though if it was just like a snapshot in time, you got a feeling from it. And I think that's what Verlinden did too. I mean, he was trying to sell his product. So, you get his 2 figures with his oil drums next to a tank, but it still had a feeling to it. They still all worked together. The same paint that he painted the groundwork with, that same color, that same tone is carried through the figure. So that's that's what I try to do on everything, set the tone, set the feeling of the piece. And then I guess, I must have, a dark place somewhere because I do like everything dark and dreary, just the way I like them. So, that's how I get there. That's how I try to get there when I start a project. How do I paint them? I still use oils for flesh. But I do use it's all like acrylics. I've really moved over to the AK 3rd gen paint now. I've tried to replace like all my Andrea or my Vallejos. So I've been using that. I still use a lot of my airbrush for like a base coats and stuff, even on 35th scale. I'll try to get like that base coat done, which is nice because I used to have to use like Tamiya paint to spray, and then I try to match the colors with something from Vallejo or Andrea. Now you can spray the 3rd gen ones. So that I can use the same colors that I spray. I can now, use as I paint. And I try not to do super high highlights where it looks like there's a, like a flashlight, shining on them. I still think I do it, but I try not to. I try to tone everything down to, make it more dark. But the whole thing can't be dark, right? You can't make the whole piece dark and muddy. So you want the darkness to start at the bottom, and then you want it to kind of grow through the piece till it gets to the highest, highlight. So like the tallest guy's helmet, or the guy that's standing the tallest in your piece, his helmet should be the brightest. Should be the brightest part. That's what I try to do. I said I don't know if I accomplished that on everything, but that's my goal.
Hey, Andy, I really love your work. I'm a huge fan of the Surrounded from 2019 or 18, I believe.
Surrounded.
Yeah, that's the SEAL Team 6.
Gotcha. Okay. Yes. Okay.
The 3 different figures facing 3 different ways, and that I love that. I love the action in that. I've looked at that for a long time, and one of the figures that's kind of got me into doing figures myself. That diorama, because
cool.
That is it's a very dynamic, and the way you brought like you said, the darkness to the light. My question is, sorry, didn't mean to go off there a little bit. You talk about your process of your building. Is the process ongoing as you're building your models or sculpting your not sculpting, but heavily modifying your figures at the base? Or do you go in with the idea that I know I need exactly this and this is what I'm looking for? Or is it like the diorama like a living thing that you change throughout the whole process?
Yeah, it changes quite a bit. I have my idea. Here's my vision. Then I start with it. Like, what's and it's just my way of processing through it. I start, so how's my easiest way to get there? Can I use this stock figure? Can I use that stock figure? Well, this guy I only need to change the arm. Well, this guy I only need to change out a head, and now I have a diorama. That's the way I start. Never ends there. It changes all the way through it. It'll change after it's done. When it's close to being done. Okay, this figure's out of place. He didn't do it. I cut corners because I used the guy from the box. I needed to. This guy needs to be converted. He's too tall. His coat hangs further down than the other guy. Once you get them all together, to me, you see stuff that you don't see while you're working on it. So you have to change it. So yeah, it goes, they go through quite a few different iterations. It always gets to my final, it does get to my vision though. So however I get there, I still get there. It takes more time sometimes. It takes more time than I think it will. I do put time frames on things in my own head, which I shouldn't do. It'll be like, okay, I need to have this done by September 1st because I want to move on to something else, but my path to get there doesn't take me just, to September 1st. It takes me way past that usually, but it does. It's constantly ongoing. I mean, you should see when I'm working on like a diorama, I'll have, a 3-figure, like a vignette. I will have pieces of 35 figures on my desk as I'm trying to put them together, and what works the best. How can I get it? How can I get it with using the pieces that I have? And then I figure out that I don't have the pieces. Okay, then I got to sculpt this arm. Or maybe I can take this guy's legs, but if I cut his legs, I can bend him down or do something with him. So, then it continues on from there. So I start with trying what's the easiest path. I never take that path all the way through, most times. But you say that a surrounded thing, those are all stock figures.
Yeah.
Not one of them's converted. Not one of them is changed in any way, shape, or form. They're just all stock figures.
That's one of the reasons. I mean, that's one of the reasons I like it too. And I don't mean to be, saying that your scratch builder, your modified figures are fantastic, but I saw those figures before and I was like, I never thought of how you use them and the tones that, you took that, you took that idea of those figures that you found the way that they work the best in that little tiny little square, 5 by 5 little piece. And that's what got me into start to do figures myself is that
nice.
What you can do with those stock figures is phenomenal. And then I started seeing the 1/20th scale submarine tower. Phenomenal. I love that. That is just, it's one of those things, but it's just, I'm a fan of your work and I was a fan of your work before I knew you. Let's just put it that way. So, and that process you talk to, and that process you talk about building in the idea and going from that idea to the next part and to the next part. Does that also include the base or is that just basically the figures
it's basically, it's everything. So I never set the base. The base will be, what's on the base I can set, is it going to be a cart? Is it going to be a building? What's going to be the backdrop? To me, everything needs a backdrop. Something needs to be like everything to me needs like 3 levels. Now they don't have to be gigantic levels between them, but everything does need levels between them. So how do you frame the piece? What's the backdrop? So that starts first. So I start on I take like a 8x8, piece of like blue styrofoam and I start there. And then my goal as I'm doing it is to get that 8x8 piece as small as I possibly can. I don't care. Do I have a 3.5 by 3.5 inch, wood base? I'll make one if I need one, or I'll have somebody make one for me. Nothing kills a diorama or a vignette more than dead space.
Yes.
Because then either you can live with the dead space, but you want to put something there and then you kill the story. Then you get into the Verlinden, 55-gallon drum. What does that have to do with the story? Nothing, but I have a corner that doesn't have anything, right? So I have to put that there. I will make the scene and then I'll fit the base to it. So that's the way I like buy bases. If I do buy bases, I buy them in 1/2 inch increments. So then hopefully somewhere along the line, I got the right size, or I'll just go out to the garage and try to make my own. I'm probably a half-ass woodworker. I got a small router table and a saw that I can cut about, 10 by 10 inch pieces, about the biggest I could do, but then I can make that base, fit what I'm trying to do. You don't want stuff to overhang, but you want it to be as tight with the composition as possible.
Building on that, Andy, your piece, Retreat in the East with the Puma and the motorcycles and some of that, you've got that section of fence behind the Puma, and it's amazing. The one that Grant was talking about, Surrounded. Your ability to make that scene small and fit everything just where it needs to be. It's really tremendous. This Retreat in the East is the same way. There's just so much going on in so little space, and it's really, really compelling.
That's what I try to, you can tell the story in a very small space. You don't need a big space to do it. For one, it's easier to bring on the airplane to bring to MFCA, so that helps always. But that's what and that's what that was one of my biggest things I took from going to like MMSI and MFCA. You see something in like the magazine, and it looks like it's probably 12 by 12. You see it in person, it's 5.5 by 3.5 inches. They fit, the Bill Horans, the Mike Blanks, the Doug Cohens. They fit so much in to the little space. There's not one extra inch on those bases, or extra, half inch or quarter of an inch. Everything is made to tell the story that they're trying to tell in the smallest place possible. And I think if you think of that as you're doing it, you're going to get there because you don't have restrictions. You don't have any borders. You just tell the story, worry about the rest later. That's kind of what I try to do. But they don't have to tell a story. They can be a snapshot in time, that too. But whatever you're trying to do it in the smallest piece possible. That would be my if anybody would ever, come and ask me to critique their dioramas or something, it's too big. The base is too big. You made this base 4 times bigger than what it needs to be. That's where I think a lot of things get lost at, is just too much empty space. And that's definitely something that I try to do. Like I said, I try to make it as small as possible. I'll make stuff too small, and then I'll go out to the garage, I'll cut the base, and I'll come back and I'll be, that's a little bit too small. Then I'll have to redo it, but that's okay. It's all part of the process to get to what your vision is.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Interesting question here. I mean, I know you say you don't really keep a lot of your work, but what are a couple of your pieces that you've done that you're maybe especially proud of, or ones where you really kind of hit that vision that you had, maybe that are favorites of yours?
I don't know. I guess I don't have like real favorites. I think the last one I did, to me, I hope it's my best one. I hope I always have improved, so I hope the last thing I did is the best thing I did. You would probably have to really talk me into selling the 16 scale Stug. That's right now, that's one of my favorites, but it's the last 16 scale one that I did. I do the 251 half track coming up here. Hopefully I'm going to like that more, and then somebody have the Stug. It's usually the last one. I've had some single figures that I've really loved. I did a 75th scale, or I'm sorry, 75 millimeter. So it was a Royal model German Grenadier. He's in the dot camo, and he's in front of like a half building. I've painted him twice. One time he's just on a standalone base, and I did him in front of a building. I think I did him about 2 years ago. I think I did him during COVID. So 2 years now, 3 years ago. That's my favorite standalone figure. I don't think I've ever hit that before. I haven't hit that again, to me, but unfortunately that was a commission piece, so I no longer have it, but that was probably my favorite piece. And then, like I said, whatever I'm doing now, I'm looking in my display case, the stuff I have ready for the show this year. I like that the best. Will that be how I feel next year? Who knows? I don't get too attached to them. I can always redo it, right? And everything to me has a problem. So it's not perfect to me. So if I ever do make that perfect model to me, then I guess that would be my favorite. But everything to me has a flaw. I did something wrong. I cut a corner here that I shouldn't have. But the 16 scale Stug right now is probably my favorite.
Nice. We've talked a little bit about your dioramas. You briefly hinted on it there around super detailing armor. I think one of the pieces that stood out to me that I really enjoyed, and I think it wasn't at this past Omaha Nats. It was the one before it, I believe. It was the self-propelled. Maybe it was this past one. It was the self-propelled Russian giant green self-propelled artillery piece.
Oh, the 2S, was it 2S7 or something like that?
Yeah, the green on that would have been killer.
That would have been back at World Expo. So that was 2017.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah, so it was World Expo. So then that would have been the Omaha, because wasn't there a Nationals in Omaha same year as World Expo?
Same time frame. Yeah.
So that was back then. So that would have been 2017.
That was killer.
That was like my first introduction to, I believe I ordered from Shapeways way back when. It was my first like 3D printed parts. I got like the 3D printed interior and like the back end where they hold the ammo at. That was like my first 3D parts. And back then you had to spend more time getting the lines out of the 3D printing than you did. It would have been easier to scratch build it, but that was probably, I think that time frame was probably the end of my super crazy detailing of armor. I kind of stopped after that. World Expo is kind of like, the Chicago show or the MFCA on steroids, right? So everything that I saw at those shows just was overwhelming there. And it's like, okay, this is what I want to do. I really want to do this stuff now. The other, the storytelling or the vignettes and stuff like that. So that was probably the end of my super detailed stuff.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. I think what stuck out to me with that, especially around the time frame, IPMS USA shows have a stigma, I think, around, the approach on finish, and maybe sometimes the models are rather pedestrian. But I think when you see your models on the table, it's just another level. And I hearken back to yours and a few other familiar names we've said. Those are the ones that really push me. And that one really drew me in just because the complexity of finish. I think it was, it stood alone on the table at a time where, modulation and those advanced, dare I say, European techniques are, making really headway in the United States. I think that one really caught my eye, and I probably took like a dozen pictures of it just because it was interesting, and turning a single color of green into something that really tells a story, but also captures your eye. It was that perfect balance of artistic and realism, and I'm just fawning over it because I thought it was friggin' awesome. I love your single vehicles. A couple of them stand out too, like the Panther A. I think you took that to Omaha, the last one, the whitewashed one, which was the awesome. One, yeah. And then the vehicle that really stood out to me, your single vehicle, I think it was a T64 with the ERA blocks, Ukrainian one. That was in Omaha too. I thought, again, as we look across the table, there's certain pieces that jump, and those are rising, well above the rest. And again, I find those single pieces inspiring, in addition to your dioramas, of course. But yeah, I just think you continually knock it out of the park. Both, everyone likes to say tank on a plank. You still nail that, but then also, you tell the story. While I'm fawning over your work, I'll harken back to, I think it was the previous Omaha. Panzer IV definitely stands out, the late one with all the dudes on it. And then also the one, if I pick an Andy iconic piece, the one that sticks out the most to me is the FT ditched with the Germans in the gas mask. I think that scene, as we think, it's not an action scene, but it's a post-mortem almost, where the dudes are just standing around, and the gas masks, I think, really set that scene apart from everything else you see in a lot of dioramas, where yes, we're always used to their faces, but in military dioramas especially, I find that little thing is so different. It just creates a completely different mood when looking at the piece, and really ties you into that exact moment, what happened potentially on the field that day, and of course what weapons were used. So in that piece, can you talk a little bit about the formation of that piece and the idea behind, and for our listeners, we'll post these pictures just for further clarity. This is an FT-17 ditched, 3 Germans casually, I think one's on the ground, the others are kneeling or standing, and they're just looking out as if somebody was taking a picture. And as an observer to the piece, you're really drawn into that moment, and you feel like you're there. So, Andy, if you could talk about that piece specifically with us, I'd really love it. Just kind of how that scene came about.
Try to remember this. I don't even know when that was. That was probably right after my L70. So maybe my second big 16 scale, like I would say, project, and that was where I thought my L70 didn't set a mood. It was guys on a tank. So it was like, what do I do to further that? I think FT just came out, because I think I built it pretty close to when it came out, and I was like, oh, that's be a cool next 16 scale. So I can remember building it, and it was just a tank. It went down the same process as my L70 did. I can remember I built the base. It was just flat, a little bit of ground, it had some levels, but it was nothing how it turned out. I don't think any of the original figures that I had put together or tried to use, I wound up using. I had it all set, and I was like, this is what I just did. I just did this same thing 2 years ago. I can't just do it again. I got to do something different. So what can I do different? So then that led into, I probably didn't even do a lot of research when I first started it, but then I started looking into, World War I pictures and, now I can do a lot more mud. I can do this, what can I do to give the feeling that I want to? Like I said, I had an idea, but when I got to what I thought was my end, time to paint, time to put it together, it just wasn't there. It was not what I wanted. It just reminded me of the L-70. I had a guy on the tank. I had two guys in front of it. I had a guy sitting on the back, and then it was like, that it just didn't work. What can I do? So then, I looked back at, probably looking through, some old pictures of, other people's work. And I always kind of like the vertical or like the angle of something.
Yeah.
That was probably about, I can't remember what probably gave me what really inspired me to do that, but something did. Either I saw something or saw something at a show or something. Something turned me to like, that's what I got to do. That's the way I got to do it. And then it was off. And then it was like, okay, here's what I do. That's probably the first time I started with, okay, here's my tank, here's my figures, make them fit the base, or, make the base fit them. Don't fit the base to the figures. I can go outside and cut that base. Or I can have somebody cut the base for me. I don't need to fit a constrained like dimension. It can have different levels. I can use my tank as the backdrop. What's the backdrop? I think my first time through it, I was going to use a building. Why would an FT-17 be next to a building with Germans on it? Just didn't play out, didn't work. So that it just, and that's how like most pieces do grow. And it was as simple as, I think at a Chicago show, maybe Last Calvary had the John Smith gas mask. And I'm like, I got to use these on something. So I bought them and I used them on something. It was that simple to why I put the guys in gas masks. There was nothing else besides that. It was like, oh, these are cool. I got to use them. And the actual, so it's the German gas mask. And the end part, like I guess it's probably their filter, right? That is actually threaded in resin to to like go on to a bottom. And I'm like, I got to use these. These are the coolest things in the world. And then as the piece started, kind of moving through, that really helped set the scene. That did it. That was like the final detail to, the crash, the tank, there's a dead guy on the backside that his clothes are all tattered and torn. And it's just a skeleton in a helmet. It's not the main part of the scene, but if you look at it in the round, it helps to set a mood. And then just the final of the gas masks. Those three guys actually have fully painted faces behind them because I wasn't going to use the gas masks. I was just going, they were just going to be plain, just normal figures. And I wound up adding that, and that was like the key. So right till the end, it changed even right up to the end. And then, to me, when you get to that point, it's like, that's it. That's what I wanted to do.
That's awesome to hear, Andy, the process of how you got there, because to me, what stands out about this piece, this is one of my favorites as well, is again, your use of the vertical, but because of the way the FT is sitting, depending on where you look at the piece, you photographed it really, really well. The front, the sides, everything it's almost like 4 or 5 different pieces depending on the way that you view the finished the finished scene. It's really incredible that way.
Yeah, that one was as I was going through that process, I had the tank, but I didn't have the figures kind of set, and I didn't know what was going to be the front. It's square. It is. I think it's like 12 by 12. It's pretty small for a 16 scale piece. It's pretty small. It's like 12 by 12 or 13 by 13. I had a hard time trying to figure out what was going to be the front because the FT is kind of in the middle and the guys could fit anywhere, so it was like, what looked the best? How did you, how could I figure out what brings the viewer into it the best? And that was how I kind of settled on what I did.
Tell us about your 16th scale Stug and that piece and how that kind of came about.
It took the same path as most. The cool tank comes out, got to build it. So most of my 16 scale projects kind of digest for a while. I had gone a couple years ago, my wife and I had gone to Rome. We took a day trip to Casino. So I got to see the Abbey. It was a kind of a guided tour, which was kind of cool to see all that stuff. So I had this, I want to do something, World War II-ish, like Italian front when I get back. So that tank had come out a couple years after that. So it was like, I actually planned a whole scene in 35th scale. And then when the 16 scale Stug came out, I decided let's give that a shot. So I built the tank first. And then it was like, what do I want to do with that? How can I tell any type of story. So get out the figures. What figures do I own? What do I need to convert? What do I need to fix? So started just playing with arms and legs and, torsos and try and get it together. Always kind of thinking, what's the backdrop? Is the tank the backdrop? Is there going to be a building in the backdrop? This one, it's pretty much just a tank. It's kind of a centerpiece, but there's a couple figures do sit a little lower, to kind of give you some type of verticality to it. You can stand the guys on the back of the tank to get that, the holy triangle of, something's got to be tall in the back in the middle, but how can you do that without doing the same thing over and over? Getting into the research and seeing, like the town of Casino during the battle, it's just rubble. It's all rubble. There's nothing still standing. So if I wanted to do a building, if you did the building a wall, there's 30 feet of rubble. So you can't have that. That doesn't fit in my small space type thing that I want to do. So get rid of that. You can just kind of show the edges of that big pile of rubble. So let's start there. So that kind of set the backside of it. I had built that whole tank. I had painted it. I believe I was at MFCA that year, and I was, somebody had a nice diorama there with a Stug or something, or wasn't a Stug, a different tank, but the tank was just beat to hell. Fender ripped off, whole bunch of stuff, and I still had just a plain Stug. Looked like it just came out of the factory. So I came back home and I took my Dremel to the Stug and start cutting parts off and rebuilding pieces. Once again, trying to set the atmosphere. You have the rubble. The Stug is not going to be, shiny and new. The figures aren't going to be, in their dress uniform. So I kind of figured out the Stug. Now figure out the figures. What can you do with the figures? How can you give them the same atmosphere and the same feeling as the Stug? That one, the 5 guys that are on there, I don't know, 5 or 6 guys. I think the standing paratrooper on top of the tank is the only guy that was in the original composition. Everything was different. It was actually a more of an action scene. And that standing guy had different arms. He was actually he was behind the Stug. And it was going to be this action scene with a guy jumping over the wall and everything. And it just didn't come together. So I started doing other stuff with other figures. I think there's 2 figures. I think they're in my display case here somewhere. There was 2 guys I had completely painted, all done. And I wound up not using them. One of the guys there, I think the guy in front, once I had him all painted and put together, he didn't fit. His clothes weren't as baggy as the other guy. His uniform didn't fit the same way the uniform fit on the other 3 guys. So I resculpted, I added some bulk to him. The guy in the tank commander, if you want to call him, he was way more like a vertical when I first put him in there, and he was all painted. All the other guys have much more of a natural kind of like a hang to him, and he looked too he looked like too proper. Looked like he was going to church. So so I took him out, cut off his torso, redid his legs, and all to lean him over by half an inch. But now he looks more natural. Now he's hanging out of the side instead of standing up in it, like a Tamiya guy from 1970. So that's the way that kind of came out. And then it was just, I wanted to paint a lot of camouflage, and then that overwhelmed me. It was too much camouflage, too much German camouflage. So you'll see one guy's in green. He was at the end of my journey. But then as you look at it, that adds contrast, that adds something different to it then, so yeah. He's in green, the tank commander's in his field gray, and you got 3 guys in camouflage, and I wanted to try and tell the story of that Stug has all the crap on the back of the Stug. It's got grenades, ammo, everything that they need. And these 5 guys came over to get resupplied off the back of that Stug. And then they see something going on, and they're all looking at it off in the distance. So that's kind of the story. That's why everything on the back of that Stug is not covered up. Everything's open. It's like the one guy is leaning against the tarp that would be over the back, but they pull the tarp off and it's over in the corner, and that's what he's kind of leaning up against as he has a smoke. So that's kind of the way I was trying to get to that. Doing the stuff like that, like doing the storage on a tank, there's 1,000 pieces you can go and buy. You got to do more to it than just buy the piece and glue it on the back of your tank. You have to add to it, take parts out of it, add parts to it, put canvas over it, add more stuff to it, add more grenades onto the top of it. You could do all that kind of stuff to kind of give it your own, individuality, but also to, get that more lived in feeling, or help, once again, help set the mood of what's going on. Nothing against all the manufacturers that make their stuff. It's great, but I buy it all, then I wind up cutting it in half or grinding it out or doing something to it. So I should probably just build my own stuff.
Because it is a little bit bigger seam, because it's 16th scale, but also because of all the details you're talking about. It really has a weight, as I was walking down through the tables, if you stop and kind of look, it just sucks you in, and I think you and I were kind of talking about that when you were telling me, how you put all the individual elements together, but it just, it really grabs a hold of you as a viewer and just really grabs your imagination.
See, I don't see that when I'm done with something. It's like, thank God I'm done at the end of that journey and I move on to something else, because I've looked at it for so long. And then when somebody does stop up, like you did, you stopped up to talk about it. And, it was like that kind of rekindled my journey, to explain to you what I did with it. But it's really like, I don't see that. I really don't. I don't see it in my own work. It's like, I'm glad I'm done with it, but I'm glad glad other people get kind of inspired by that. So I guess I'm doing to other people what other people used to do to me or still do to me, obviously. But, so it is kind of cool to hear that other people do get, inspiration for what I'm doing. I never thought I would get there. Back when I was dry brushing, Tamiya figures.
Yeah, that brings back some memories right there. So we talked about MSI, we talked about your build. So I'm gonna MMSI is about a month away from now. So yeah. What are you bringing?
Nothing at 16 scale this year. I had kind of I wouldn't say I've had a low in a model building, but had a big vacation this year. Got back from that. I was kind of out of gas. So I got 2 small vignettes. One of them was kind of inspired by my vacation. We took a Normandy. Me and my wife took a Normandy tour.
Oh, wow.
So I'm doing a 101st Airborne small little compact diorama. That should be done. I got a lot of work to do on it, but I should get that done. I got a small diorama with some Germans behind a cart and probably about 7 or 8 individual figures. So that'll be, I got a couple of busts, a couple 75 millimeters figures. Nothing for the ordnance category. 2 years in a row now, for something that I always did. I always brought a tank on a plank, as John would say. I haven't done it now in 2 years. So I do have a couple other stuff. Hopefully one of the collectors that has some of my stuff, he's going to bring it up for me so I can have a bigger display that haven't been to the show before. We'll see. I'll have some stuff there. It'll be something.
I'm sure.
Nice. Andy, you mentioned going to Normandy. What sites did you hit? When were you there?
I think, John, I believe I was there exact same time you were.
I was going to say, I thought so. We crossed on some motorway. I bet,
yeah. So I think I got there. So we did a guided tour with the Beaches of Normandy group.
Nice.
So me and my wife went to Paris for about 3 days before, or for 2 days before. Then we did the trip and we were there for a day after in Paris. But I think we may have started on June 17th and I think we came back on June 25th, 26th, something like that. It was about 9 days. So because you were there for the air show, right?
Yeah, I did Paris Air Show and then I stayed for a week.
And then you stayed, right?
And I spent 5 days. I stayed at Aeromosh, but I went all over the place. It was okay. It was a hell of a trip. Did you stop at the Tiger One in Vimetiers?
No. So the tour, like I said, it was pretty much a guided tour. On this day you do this.
Oh, that's cool.
We were based out of the Omaha Beach. On the golf course they have a small resort there. So that's where we were based out of. So we took we took day trips out of there. So we did, you started Utah, a beach one day, Omaha Beach the next day, and then everything that goes with it. And then the third day we did, I can't remember, all kind of blurs together, but we did it. So we wound up doing all 5 beaches, all the big sites, the big museums, the Airborne Museum.
Yeah.
What's the big one right by the Omaha Beach, right by the cemetery?
Oh yeah. There's I think it might be called the Overlord Museum.
Yes, I do believe so. Yeah. Yes, we got to spend a couple hours.
It's really
there.
nice. Yeah.
It's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool. Was some guy's pretty much his whole collection. When you get to the end, you see the guy's name and it's like this was all this guy's stuff. And I was like, oh my God, he had everything, right?
Yeah. That museum was amazing. I think the one thing for me, it was just hard to see some things. It was really, from a visitor that isn't uber interested in military vehicle details like ourselves, it's a wonderful experience.
Yes.
It tells the story, it sets the mood.
Right.
But I'm like, damn, there's a freeze crane and a Panther, and I'm in pitch black. I can't see
it's
it.
in pitch black, and it's in this overwhelming hall.
Yeah,
it's like, oh man, can I sneak back there and crawl all over this?
Yeah, the Panther G was behind glass, or sorry, the Panzer IV was behind glass.
The Panzer IV was behind the glass, which was awesome to see.
I was impressed with their, half track soft skin collection. He had everything there.
He had everything. He did. It was really cool. That was pretty cool. So we did a Utah Beach Museum. So we did all the big museums there and everything.
Yeah.
I didn't do a lot of research before I went there. I wish I would have, because in like every moment of my spare time, I would have been crawling around somewhere.
Oh yeah.
So we didn't, I should have done that. I had to convince my wife we got to go back.
Dude, seriously. It was, I think the thing that surprised me the most about Normandy, and I guess you could say the whole Normandy sector from Pegasus Bridge all the way, across the 5 beaches, it's a massive area.
It's big. Yeah.
It's big. The later part of my trip was in the Ardennes, and that was super tight.
Okay.
Normandy was huge. Like you said, day trips everywhere.
Yeah.
It's almost you pick a base camp and then you're going out driving an hour or so every day to get to a different sector. So
and it's kind of what we did. So it was very cool. And it was enough like detail for me. I was kind of afraid it was going to be, just kind of an overview. And now we had, had great tour guides and stuff. And so it was awesome. So I came back from that really inspired to do stuff, but then also inspired to learn more about the history. So I spent way more of my evenings reading something, looking something up on the internet. I've gone down a rabbit hole on the Atlantic Wall for some odd reason.
Oh yeah.
So that's taken a lot of my modeling up. That's why there's no big 16 scale something to bring to the show this year. So
I totally get it. Totally understand.
Do you ever see yourself maybe doing like, I don't know, a ship or a science fiction subject, or, as you look maybe 5 or 10 years down the line, where do you see your modeling going to?
I'd love to do a ship. I have probably about 10 of them, 1/350 scales. I got a bunch of Japanese aircraft carriers, stuff like that. I do want to do one eventually. I kind of bought them when they came out because you never know if they're going to still be there. At least that's my justification in my own head. Is it going to be there in 20 years when I want to build it? No, they won't, but one way nicer will. So I'll just buy that one when it, 20 years down the road. I would like to do a ship. That's actually my favorite part of like the IPMS Nationals is the ships, because that's something I haven't tried. I'd love to try. I don't know if I can do one to the, to their, to the quality that you see there, but it's something I want to try. I had some sci-fi stuff. I'd love to do it. I have these ideas of like my, something that I do with, 5 German guys behind a cart. Well, I want to do 5 stormtroopers behind blowing up something else, so I do want to do something like that eventually. Right now, I think I'm tired of World War II for a little bit. I'm going to go into other like historical things, maybe knights. I don't know, maybe Romans, something. I think I got to take like at least like a 1 project detour for a little bit here. So we'll see. But I also want to do, I want to do a fully like 5-figure vignette that all 5 guys are my own sculpts. And I want to do that for MFCA this year. Let's see if I get motivated to do that. I say I'm going to get out of World War II, but that'll probably be Germans because that's what I think I can sculpt the best. So I'll probably will maybe go down that path. But everything, I want to build everything. I have so many ideas in my head. I just want to build everything. Anything can motivate me. I can take a Roman scene and turn it into a World War II scene. I can take a medieval scene and turn that into a Roman scene. It's just, that's what I want to kind of do, in my next step, I think. But we'll see. I still like the World War II stuff. I'm still, everything I'm bringing this year is World War II. So we'll see where that goes.
So, speaking of where we go, Andy, if people want to catch you at a show, what do you typically hit every year?
Well, so I always go to the Chicago show in the fall in October. And then I always go to MFCA. I try to always get there. I've gone there now about the last, except for the COVID year and when World Expo was in Chicago, because I don't think they had that show as a full weekend show. I think I've gone there since probably 2008 or 9. And if the nationals are in the Midwest, I'll go. So I probably will be at Madison next year. there. Amps, maybe not. I might show up for a day. We'll see.
You got to come to South Bend. We're all going to be there.
Yeah, I'll probably show up for a day. I don't know if I'm going to spend the weekend there. We'll see.
We'd
but I
love to
probably
buy
will
you
get
beer.
there. I probably will get there. All right. I think I'll. Well, then now I got to go for at least a day. So, but it's usually, it's usually the big figure shows, and unfortunately now around here, in the U.S. there's only two. It's really. I guess the Atlanta show is there too. The Long Island show, that's way too close to Chicago, so I can usually never get there. But those I'd like to get those on my on my normal calendar of shows.
Nice.
It usually just doesn't work out. I would like to go to more. It's just I like the group, and that's a different group. That's the group for MFCA and MMSI. That's the guys I really kind of gravitate towards now. It's less the IPMS and the amps, and there's some overlap between the two. At the moment, it's those guys. Those guys are what give me the inspiration.
For sure.
That's where you'll find me at, is with those guys.
I love it. We got to have a show in Denver or Salt Lake City. Maybe we'll get you out west, explore the mountains.
Yeah, I'd love to. Actually, I have some family in Denver.
Then this is sold.
So.
I feel like it's fate, for crying out loud.
It could be. Yeah, it could be. I definitely do want to travel to more shows. I definitely do. I missed going to a nationals of this year, and it wasn't because of the show. It was like, oh, look who's at the show. Oh, hey, Jim's at the show, or whoever, and it's like, oh man, I haven't seen him since last year at nationals.
Yeah.
So it was like, I definitely it was only Texas. I could have got to Texas. It's not too far, but I don't like to drive that far, so I'd probably have to fly, and it limits what you can bring. But I still want to get to more. I definitely do want to do more shows. I don't want to miss them, because I think I missed a lot when I was younger. I didn't go to a lot at all.
Yeah.
Like I said, I only started going to Chicago in 2001, and that was my only show I went to for years. My first AMP show would have probably been the first one in Aberdeen. My first IPMS nationals, maybe Columbus in 2008 or 9. I didn't even go to the Chicago one. It was right in my backyard in what 2000 or whatever, and I didn't go. So I definitely want to get to more, because I think I need to catch up. I haven't gone to enough.
100%. So Andy, one of the last questions we always like to ask our guests is, you've accomplished a lot. You've made a lot of big projects. When we think of what is at the top, the magnum opus, what if you had one last project to do, no matter what the scope, scale, effort, what would it be?
One last project. Something where it would have to be something of substantial size. So probably something 16 scale, where all of the figures, whatever it would be, 4, 5, 6, 8, whatever I come up with, were all my sculpts. That would be what I think would be the top. And if I pulled it off, I'd probably quit. It's like, that's it. Seeing what like John Rosengrant does with a 16 scale, tank, and does his 8 figures, doing something to that quality would be, one of my highlights if I could pull that off. Because what you have to do to get there is just so much work, effort, creativity. So it's the top of all of those different, tasks.
Mm-hmm.
You can't screw up the paint job on a 16 scale, a tank. You can't screw up the groundwork. You can't screw up the sculpting. You can't screw up the painting of the figures. So all of that together would be my top thing. That, or something of kind of the same, but like a medieval battle scene that I sculpted everything, like a Mike Blank piece. If I could do that, I'd be happy. That would be a happy place for me if I could recreate something to 90% of what he could do. That would be something cool too. But it's more if I could get there with the creativity and my own pieces. So I sculpted them. That would be it.
Well, Andy, this has been fantastic. Thank you for spending some time with us
no problem,
today,
guys.
and giving us kind of a glimpse into how you do what you do. And, thank you for the time you spent with me last year. I can't wait to see what you bring to MMSI this year, and look forward to seeing you there. Maybe we can hang out in the hostility suite.
It's not that hostile there.
No,
it's not as hostile there as they all make it out to be. It's unless they get it more than I do, because I'm probably just a lonely judge, and they're the head guys, so they might get it a little more. But it's it, and that's go down a little rabbit hole here. if you go to the show because of you have an expectation of a medal you want to get, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Go to the show to be
100%.
inspired by people. Go to the show to meet other people. That's the hobby to me. I never would have met this wide range of people that I know if it wasn't for modeling. We have nothing in common. We don't have anything in common with John, except we built models, right? We don't have anything in common with Greg CR. He's one of my better friends now. It's like, that's why you go to the show. And if you did go with an expectation for something and you don't hit that expectation, look at it in two different ways. Go try harder next time, which is kind of a rude way to say it. But if that's what you want, then that's what you got to do. Or just look at it as a couple people didn't like what I brought this year. Oh, well, and move on. And don't let it bother you. Don't let it drag you down. Don't get into Facebook arguments. It's not worth it. It's spend that time modeling, spend that time doing the stuff that you like to do. If this brings you a joy, and then I'm not sure if it does bring you joy if you get that mad because you didn't win something, it's like, well, if you're that upset about it, then you might have picked the wrong hobby, because it's like you should have fun doing it. You should have fun seeing other people. Take the criticism, take constructive criticism. Don't take anger, spewed at you. That's not a good way to. We want more people to do this. Right. We want that. Yep. I go to, I'm not involved with the club up here, but it's my home show. I want those tables to be filled all the time because then I know it's going to be there next year. It's going to be there the year after if more people keep coming. That's what I want. That's what this is. That's where I want to. John, you want that's what I want. I want people to I want everybody who comes to the show to have fun. Don't be angry. It's not worth it. It's fun. I was at MFCA a few years ago. Somebody was on his cell phone telling his wife that he won a bronze. And you could tell that the wife was like, you spent all that time in the basement and all you got was a freaking bronze. You could tell that was the other end of it. And then I was walking by with somebody else and this guy was like, this guy's all upset or excited. You can't tell he's selling for a trinket, for a little trinket. That's what you're excited about. You're not, we're all out on our way out to eat. Where are we going to go out? Who are we going to hang out with, tonight? That's the fun part. That's where the hobby needs to go with everybody, and everybody just needs to relax and have some fun. It's fun.
And what you said earlier, go for the inspiration. Go to be exactly. Inspired. Go to meet Andy and have him tell you about the piece that he brought and how he put that together. And that's what I think is the best part. That, and then like you said, going and hanging out with like-minded people. Yeah.
Right. That's.
No, I was going to say, I'm going to see Shep Payne's work. Sorry. I'm 100% with you. That's a great, that's what it should be. But I'm also be able to see Shep Payne's work for me is monumental.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
It is. I've never seen his stuff before. And I grew up with how to build dioramas, how to build military. Okay. That was the books I started with, so seeing those, that's going to be, that's
awesome.
That's awesome.
Right. That is. And it'll be awesome for me. Yeah.
That's the plane ticket right there. That's the whole thing.
I mean, like I said before, I've been to his house before and stuff like that. But he didn't have that stuff there. He was done with that. He was a military collector by the time I got to know him. It was like he wanted to have one last modeling hooray before he got too old. And unfortunately he passed away in the middle of it. But it was like I've never seen I've seen, I see the same stuff, you guys would see. You see it in our magazines and stuff, everything. And once in a great while, at the World Expo in Chicago, there's a couple pieces there. The half-track piece was there last year. But I'm really stoked to see all his other stuff, to see the boxes. I don't think I've ever seen a Shep box in person. I've seen his open dioramas. I've never seen the boxes in person. It seems like that's what's going to be there.
Yeah. They're talking about, there's going to be a lot. There's I think it's 8 or 9. 8 or 9 at least.
More than that. Yeah. More than that. So yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. It should be awesome. Should be great to see that stuff. And that's the inspiration. May not be, there's going to be better. There's going to be somebody who has a better sculpted figure there or a better painted tank than what's inside that box. But it's not going to give you the feeling that his does, because his would have set that atmosphere, set that feeling that I, try to capture and everything. So that will be cool to see. Can't wait to see all that stuff.
Well, October 20th and 21st, the Schaumburg Marriott, the MMSI show. If anybody listening wants to attend, highly recommended. My first time was last year. It was amazing. You get to meet fantastic modelers like this guy right here. And if you get a chance, if you're in the area, go see it. The work is amazing, and I think you'll be impressed.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me, and thanks for giving the show a little bit of a plug there. Like I said, it's my, bigger that show is, the better. It's always, and it's always good to see new people. The last couple of years, a lot of new names when I'm going through judging and stuff. It's like, I haven't heard that guy's name before. I haven't seen his name before. So that's a plus. So.
Yeah. Well, Andy, thanks again. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you for taking the time to get to know me a little bit last year. You're very generous with your time. Your work's very inspiring. And we will see you in a few weeks in Chicago.
Awesome, guys. I will see. At least I'll see two of you guys. You said you were bringing somebody else, too.
Yeah, Grant's coming.
Grant's coming, right?
Yep.
And, okay. All right.
Gonna try and drag some other people too. John's saying something about going to this little show in Eindhoven or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's always like a week after or the week of. Usually the week after. Right. It's usually the week after. So yeah.
Believe me, I wish I could go to both, but I do enjoy my personal life right now, and walking away for 2 weekends in a row for a scale model show might be a little tough. But no, it's on my short list for sure. This year it's SMC. I think next year we'll do Telford, but in that mix I'll also do the Chicago show. So
sounds good.
Yeah, it's great. I can't wait. So maybe we'll see in Madison. Maybe we'll see at AMPS in South Bend. And if we do, drinks are on us.
All right. Sounds good, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy. All right. That was a great interview. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Andy is terrific. I really enjoyed getting to meet him at last year's MMSI, and I am really, really excited to see what he brings this year and be able to see that in person. It's going to be great. All right, Jensen, let's talk about some merch.
That's right. Pull up those lounge trousers. It's merch time. If you would like to rep the posse, you can check out our awesome merch at our Triple P Springs page. You can find coffee mugs, t-shirts, jumpers, or even some world famous Triple P lounge trousers. You can order all of your stylish Plastic Posse merch on the webpage at plasticpossepodcast.creator-spring.com or loungetrousers.com. Rep the posse today.
All right. Thanks, Jensen. Well, I wanted to talk briefly about a couple of books that I got this week. One was electronic. One was a print book. First, I wanted to highlight the ebook version of Perfect Pits, the expanded second edition. Chris Meddings was kind enough to share a link to this ebook, and it's a pretty awesome book, especially for you aircraft guys. It's a great value. It's an ebook, a PDF that you download like to your iPad. The book features 5 different modelers, and it's 92 pages. It's actually expanded over the print version of the book. Really good photography, a lot of pictures, almost kind of like a tank art kind of a format that they've done with the book. It's really good. There's everything from scratch building to painting to super detailing. Tom Anish does one of the chapters in there, and I mean he's using all of his microscopic knobs and levers and switches, and that it's a really good book. So if you haven't seen it, give it a little look. I think it's really, really nice. You can get it over at insidethearmor.com. And also, I think Chris is having a 20% off sale on the rest of his books. You use the code SUMMER23. So you may want to check out some of his other print books or ebooks. The other thing I wanted to talk about is I got a notification from Australia Post this week, and I'm holding it up here. I think Grant and TJ already have theirs, but I received my copy of the Luna Combat book we discussed when Link was on with us. If you guys are on the fence about this book, you need to get it. This is beautiful, beautiful book. The photography in this is stunning. It's really good. Obviously, TJ has some work in this book, several other modelers, Link and other modelers, but it's just a beautiful book. The cover is very high gloss, and the photography is just stunning. The format that they've chosen is really, really, really highlights the work, and the photography is stunning. So anyway, Luna Combat, you can get that from Link on his paintonplastic.com or over on Facebook at Paint on Plastic. But if you are interested at all in machining Krieger, this book is really, really beautiful.
So, all right. Well, thank you for riding along with us for episode 78 of the Plastic Posse. Your support, along with our great sponsors and patrons, help bring the Triple P to you every 2 weeks. If you've got a gripe, maybe a suggestion, you can send us your feedback to plasticpossepodcast@gmail.com. And if you haven't joined the Plastic Posse Facebook group, why not? And we'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Yeehaw!
If you would like to support the Triple P and become a Plastic Posse Outrider, hey, it's super easy. Just go on over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/Plastic Posse Podcast, and you can set up a recurring donation there. These contributions help us offset the cost of bringing you the Triple P. There are 3 different tiers of support, and they start at just $1 a month. There's some great benefits. You get early access to podcasts, you get premium access to the hosts, chance to appear on a podcast like the world famous Justin Lentz, and also access to exclusive Triple P content.
Let's recognize our amazing deputy marshals. These guys really step up and help the posse do what we do, and we sincerely thank them for their support. They are Brad Ralston, Stephen Rodwell, Rick Cooper, Tim Gidcombe, Dan Newman, Robert Blocker, Tyler Moore, Derek Post, Craig Flynn, Brian Kreiner, Scale Model Craft, Ken Childress, Nick Butta, Drew Gardner, Scott Hall, Frank Perrone, the voice of Bob, Jeremy Diamond, Ryan Smith, Terry Wilkinson, Chris Lovewell, Andrew Callis, Ethan Idemill, Bruce the Model Noob, Steve Baker, Eric Daglish, Joe Porche, Patrick Brown, Thank You for Breakfast, Jay Kidd, Brandon Gentry, Robert Klein, Mark Ewing, Ted Kawahara, Toadman, Model Doc, Doug Reed, Greg James, Les Workala, B Colt 1911, John Everett, Josh Buck, Black Rifle Model Works, Thomas Baniak, Mark Bradley, Zach Pease, Joel Munson, Eric Brubaker, Jeremy Moore, DB Scale Model Studio, Matt Johnson, Jeremy Elliott, Mike Talley, Previous Seat, Mediocre Middle-Aged Modeler, Dan Knopfel, and JC Osborne.
Let's also recognize our excellent posse foremen. These foremen are outriders who give the deputy marshals a hand. William, Rob, Tim, Jeff, Eddie, Ross, George, Gary, Warath Models, Drew, Ross, Eric, Lynn, Cliff, Eric, Mike, Papa Steve, Red Beach One Studios, MD Models, JV, Damon, Karen, Cody, Tim, Nukeman Mike, Greg, JAK, Ash, Irish Pat, Paul. What's the deal with iBones Models? What really is the deal? Congratulations, by the way. Mr. Grizz, Jackson, Make Marler, Chris, Lee, and Jamie.
And of course, our posse outriders. We appreciate all of you, including our newest outrider, Chris Doppler. Thanks, Chris, and welcome to the posse. Please consider posting a review of the Triple P on the podcast platform that you use. Each 5-star review helps other modelers find the Plastic Posse.
The following stinger contains spoilers about Ahsoka. If you haven't watched it yet, turn your podcast app off now. Has everybody seen episode 5 of Ahsoka? I know 6. I know 6 is out. I haven't seen that one. Did you guys see 5?
Yeah.
Everybody. Oh
Not
my gosh. No. Oh, you haven't seen it?
You don't count it.
It's fine. You can talk about it, Adam.
It was, oh man, so amazing to see Rex and see the Vision brought into with real actors. I mean, just seeing Anakin and the lightsaber colors changing, and oh man, just what an amazing episode.
Yeah, it's really good.
It was,
the whole series is great.
Yeah, it's funny because as Jackson and Zach will tell you, and I exaggerate just to piss them off and tell them, Clone Wars isn't real Star Wars and all that stuff, which I don't honestly believe that. I never watched the Clone Wars. I mean, I was an adult when that came out, and it was targeted to children. I mean, all Star Wars is. I don't care what anyone says. Star Wars is for kids. It just is. And that's fine. Kid stuff is great. And I never watched Rebels. So like I am not the target, and there's been complaints about that with Ahsoka, like, oh, you need to have watched, all 7 seasons of Clone Wars and Rebels or whatever. And I mean, I didn't, and I'm enjoying all of it. But also, I watch the YouTube videos, like I read the articles, like I know the broad strokes, like I get it, right? Like I knew who Ahsoka was. I know, the big plot lines from Clone Wars, and I, despite what I tell Jackson and Grizz, I have nothing against Clone Wars. It was just not the right time for me when it came out. And the funniest thing about this whole thing, especially that episode in particular, immediately after it dropped, on Facebook, there was one of these clickbaity reviews, like on one of these like crappy like whatever websites. They're like wrote a pretty nasty review of it, like no one wanted to see this. It just rehashes the Clone Wars and everything. And then like a couple days go by and everyone's raving about it. And I'm like, yeah, it's funny. Like, who wanted to see a live action rehash Clone Wars? Literally everyone that grew up watching the Clone Wars, right? Because I think it's important to remember, like, for a lot of people, that was their Star Wars, right? Like, quote unquote kids, young people, Jackson and Zach's age and around that area, Clone Wars was their Star Wars, right? Just like for me, my age, the prequels were my Star Wars. I was in 9th grade when the first prequel came out, right? So I was maybe a little bit older than a lot of kids that were watching the original Star Wars in the 1970s when I was a teenager. But like that's what I grew up with. Obviously, I grew up with the original trilogy first, through my dad, and I had the VHS tapes, and I loved it and was obsessed with it by the time the prequels came out. But I grew up with the prequels, and they get a lot of well-deserved hate because there is some not so good stuff about them. But again, and I've said it a million times, I enjoy all Star Wars. I don't care, and people give me crap about it, but I enjoy the prequels. I enjoy the sequel trilogy. There's things about both that I don't like. Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed all the shows. Some have been better than others. I'm looking at you, Book of Boba Fett. Looking at you, Obi-Wan. Like, I watched all of them and I enjoyed everything. Yeah, there's some stuff that's much, much better. Cough, cough, Andor, cough. Still the best Star Wars show they've ever made. Andor is better than even season 1 of The Mandalorian. I'll die on that hill. Andor was amazing. There's literally nothing bad about that show. Yeah, I don't care that people think you have to have watched all this other crap to enjoy Ahsoka. I haven't, and I've enjoyed every episode. Yeah, sure, some of it hasn't been as good as some other parts, but as a whole, I've really enjoyed it. This last episode was good too, I thought.
Yeah. I mean, the 5 was great. I think it was 6 was fantastic. I can't wait for 7.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 7's going to be great. And then, see what they do rolling on from that. But in 5, when they had Anakin there and he was running through the smoke and he was changing back and forth between Vader and himself. Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. And it was so good. I was like, wow. And I was lucky enough to grow up. I remember standing in line to see the original episode 4 and 5 and 6 at the theaters and stuff like that. And going and watching it and getting back in line again to watch it again. And
Nice.
that was, I grew up in those days, and that was crazy. And it was such a thing. But, you talk about Andor and, and all the other stuff out there. Rogue One is my favorite. One of my favorite. Yeah, it's my favorite. Yeah. It's really close to 4, but that's a great movie. And and that's, in my opinion, it's great. And then I love Ahsoka, and it's just so interesting to see what they're doing and how they're rolling so much stuff into these episodes, into the whole the whole story and everything like that. But it's Scott, you got to watch 6. You're gonna love it.
I think watching the Clone Wars and Rebels I think Rebels is probably. I was talking to my kids last night. We're rewatching it because, again, I got a 13-year-old, 10-year-old, and a 6-year-old. The 6-year-old has seen Rebels, but he doesn't remember. He was probably 2 or something when we watched it last, and so we're kind of going back through it. But whenever it was over, I was like, oh man, Rebels, because we're just about to finish season 3, and it's just so, like, for some reason it sucks you in, and it's like it's some of the best Star Wars. I don't know if it's the best Star Wars because Andor is really good. But and there's something about, and TJ, I know you can enjoy it still, and I'm not like saying this because like I have this and you don't, but like it hits whenever you went through all of when you've gone through all of Rebels and when you've gone through the Clone Wars, like there's just certain moments that'll hit you differently. Like whenever Anakin's walking off and he calls her Snips. He calls Ahsoka Snips. You're like, ooh. Like, I mean, I'm a grown man. I'll admit, I got a tear. It's like, oh, dude, that hits in a spot. Whenever if you hadn't seen them, and if you hadn't seen their relationship develop, it's so stupid. I feel like I'm talking about cartoon characters, really. But you see that, and I mean, that's like, it's like our folklore or something. I mean, so having seen all that, there's just certain spots that'll just hit you a little bit differently. Yeah. Whenever you've seen and whenever you've been through all those other, and so it is a slog, man. The Clone Wars, it's just like, oh my God, we have how many more episodes in this season? I mean, some of them do. You're like, why did this have to happen? But yeah, it's so good. Dave Filoni is just really like,
yeah. He's found a way to recapture the magic. There's something magical in season 2 of The Mandalorian when you see Ahsoka as a live action character for the first time, and the sabers light up in the darkness for the first time. And I mean, he's really found a way to bring back that magic. When we saw Star Wars as kids, and then when we went back and saw Empire, that's what we're seeing again. We're seeing that magic of, Empire starts, and all of a sudden these characters we've waited for so long, they're back. Yep. And Filoni and Favreau, they have that. You can just feel it in the productions. Like TJ said, some are better than others, but that those magical moments have really come back in a lot of these series. And I'll be honest, I'm not a big Disney fan, and if it wasn't for these shows, I wouldn't even have Disney Plus. It wouldn't be something that I'd choose to pay for. But you see these shows, and it's just like I said, you're recapturing that these little magic moments. Seeing Captain Rex was a magical moment. Seeing Anakin change from very kind and very concerned for Ahsoka to evil and adversarial and going back and forth. It's magic, and it's they're just doing a fantastic job.
I've been totally enjoying the show. I will say, though, going back to Clone Wars, the best way for someone like myself to get through Clone Wars was I would put it on the TV while I would start a kit, or I'd work on something that was just building, and I'd sit at my kitchen table and watch. Kind of half watch as I'm working on a kit, because 7 seasons of a cartoon, especially when some of the episodes are pointless and have Jar Jar in them and stuff, it's hard. But I mean, if you can slog through it, you get to the last season especially the last 4 episodes of the last season are absolutely some of the best Star Wars you're going to find.
I read an article it might have been earlier. It might have been this morning. It might have been last night. I can't remember. And the gist of the article was pretty much like Dave Filoni has made Star Wars a fantasy again.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to remember, because I think a lot of times people forget, like, Star Wars is not hard sci-fi, and it never has been, right? Like it is science fantasy. That's, I mean, Jedi are space wizards, you know, the knights are knights, you know, that's why they wear armor in like the Clone Wars. Like, why would a Jedi wear armor? They don't need armor. Like, they just deflect blaster bolts, like, right? Like, you can't shoot a Jedi with a blaster, but they wear armor, right? And it's not like they don't really fight other people with lightsabers, and if they did, the lightsabers would just cut through that armor. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, they're knights. That's what they're knights / wizards. Like, they're called Jedi Knights, for God's sake. But
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it is science fantasy, and I appreciate that Dave Filoni has done that. He's made it more fantastical, which is what it appeals to me, because I'm a fantasy nerd and a science fiction nerd, and it's like the combination of those two things I love. And you know, I think it was this last episode, and sorry, Scott, I mean, it's the beginning, so it's not really a spoiler, but hearing David Tennant, you know, and I told I was so excited. Like, my wife doesn't give a shit. Like, right? Like, she doesn't really care about Star Wars. But I was like, sweetie, something happened in Ahsoka last night that's never happened since 1977. And she's like, what is it? I'm like, they said the thing. She's like, what does that mean? And I played her the scene. I'm like, David Tennant is this droid said a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. She's like, no one's ever said that. I'm like, no, that's never been said. It's the text before all the movies, and everyone knows you hear that, you see that's Star Wars. I'm like, someone freaking said it. And yeah, it's corny. I don't care. It was awesome.
That was so cool. That was so cool.
Yeah,
we have a Doctor Who Star Wars crossover.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. David Tennant, because he also voiced that droid in, I guess, the Clone Wars too. I think
Clone Wars.
I think he might have even been in Rebels. I can't remember, but yeah, Hu Yang. That's David Tennant, and he's great. I mean, I like David Tennant anyways. Even, I'm not a Doctor Who fan, but I like other stuff that David Tennant's done. He's got a great voice, and he sounds awesome as Hu Yang. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was the one scene when Hera and her kid were on that little planet, because he's clearly got like Jedi abilities. when he was like, oh, you know how to build lightsabers? Yes. Can you teach me how to do that? No. Oh. Why not? That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and then also that, like, oh, we're like, yeah, you knew Ahsoka's master?
Yeah.
Yes. What was he like? He was intense. I'm like, that's one way of explaining Anakin Skywalker. Yes, he could be intense. That's true, when he's, murdering younglings in the Jedi Temple.
Yeah. I mean, when she was sitting in there and they're going through hyperspace, and she was sitting there, and the way she just leaned back and she's like, tell me a story, and he goes into it. I'm just like, it's like every goosebump on my arm went like, poof.
Yes.
Yeah. And he said that. And I was just like, and you're like thinking, okay, well, is he telling this all these stories? Was he around for everything? Has he been there this entire time? And, he knows all the stories, and it's just, even hyperspace was changed from 5 to 6, episode 5 to 6, and you look at the hyperspace in 5 and they're traveling through it. Well, then you go to 6 and you're like, what the, and it's crazy.
Well, I don't know if they'll ever explain it, but I'm convinced it's because the Purgles do it different.
Yep.
Right. Like, it's like, because they do it biologically, not with machines. So maybe that's why, because in all the videos brought that up, like, that did not look like hyperspace from literally anything else.
No.
Right. Star Wars hyperspace is always a tube with swirling white lights around it, and there was like all this like rainbows and all this stuff colors. It was awesome.
It was going through the Purgos and everything. It was going through everything. It was crazy. It was good. It was really good.
Man, I love Star Wars. God damn it.
Yeah. It's like,
no, man,